Okay, yo, what is up? Welcome to the third episode of Pure Grade Puroresu. My name is Lewis, and today I've got something special. Unlike my first two episodes where I reviewed a single promotion, today I'm going to be reviewing ZERO1 as well as Big Japan Pro Wrestling. The main reason for that is because obviously every January there's New Japan's Tokyo Dome show, and so everyone in Japan as well as all the Western fans are always really craving after Japanese pro wrestling, and so a bunch of the smaller promotions in Japan also put on shows, and so there's quite a lot of content coming out right now from Japan, and we're still waiting on some Samurai TV airings for some other shows, and I was figuring that I'm going to end up doing like 10 episodes a week if I don't start doubling up some reviews. So I figure today I'll start with a ZERO1 show and then the Big Japan show, and both were from Korakuen Hall, and both were only one day apart. And one of these shows I thought was very good, and the other I thought was quite overrated, but still pretty solid. So first, a few housekeeping things. Obviously I'll try to keep this short because I follow a lot of wrestling podcasts, and a lot of them like to just spend like the first 20-30 minutes sort of just talking about nonsense, and they even try and like joke about it as if like that's like part of their charm, but to me it just really annoys me because it's like I want to get to the wrestling content, but I'll try to keep all of this quick. So first of all, I just want to thank all the the minimal but still apparently real listeners that the show has been getting. I've only put out 2 episodes and started up a Twitter account. I've got everything up on like Podbean, YouTube, and iTunes, and I've been actually getting some feedback, like a few comments on YouTube from people saying, this is interesting, we like this sort of stuff, and encouraging me, and that's really cool. Like honestly, I was mostly doing this feeling like maybe I'll be lucky to get like like a few listeners, but I've already got like a few comments that it just helps, it just makes it easier to continue on with the show, even though it's sort of like an uphill battle at the moment. But you know what, I'm having fun. Even if I didn't really have any viewers, maybe I shouldn't say that, even if I only had like at least one viewer like per episode, that'd be enough for me, just because I love pro wrestling. I love just talking about it and getting my thoughts out there. Relating to that, I was on Podbean, which is the service I've chosen to host all my episodes, and I noticed that I had my first listener, which wasn't just me listening to my own podcast on my phone, and it was someone from Italy. And I have no clue whether that this Italian subscribed. They might not necessarily be Italian, could just be someone overseas in Italy, but I'm going to err on the side of caution. They're probably Italian. So, shout out to that person. They were my first actual download of the show. They listened to my Wrestle Kingdom review. Let's hope that they care enough about Noah and ZERO1 and all the other Japanese promotions to, stay on, and, you can become like my first consistent follower. What else do I have to talk about? Since this is a double episode, I actually had a bit of fun. For the episode art of the first 2 episodes, I've just been taking like images relating to the shows that I found online, and I was going to do that this time, but I was like, I'm doing 2 separate shows from 2 separate promotions. How exactly should I have the episode art? Because it can't just be Big Japan, it can't just be ZERO1. So I'm actually fired up Photoshop on my old laptop, and made like a little, collective image of Big Japan and ZERO1's main event like screens. It's sort of shitty, but it was fun. It took me like 5 minutes, so give me some big props for that. What else? Oh yeah, this is the big thing. The audio equipment. So we have the exact same audio equipment as last episode, but the accessories are going to make this a way easier experience for me, as well as an easier listening experience. So we've got these new arms, that I can drill to the table, not drill, like tie to the table, and then they allow the mic to be held in place. And that's a massive benefit, because the first 2 episodes my arms were dying after the end, especially that first episode where I recorded for like 2 hours and my arms just dead from holding that mic. And we've also got some pop filters, so now when I like make like a P or a B sound, it won't go as it was doing earlier. So that'll be great for you. Also, just a quick note, I've just been watching through the All Japan shows, the first few New Year's Wars shows, and they've been really easy watches. I'm not going to do a review of them just because it's been like 2 weeks since they aired at this point, and as I said at the start, there are so many other shows that are coming out that I want to watch as well as review. So I think I'm just gonna, leave those there. I am gonna watch them just so when future All Japan shows come out that I've got the context for the year. But yeah, so I don't look forward to an All Japan New Year's Days review unless I know that their tour is still continuing, but I'm not sure if they have any big matches announced yet. So unless they do some more shows, you will not hear a review of that from me. So, should we just kick this off then? So I'm going to start with the ZERO1 Happy New Year show, which I think was probably the first show in Japan for 2019, because it was right on January 1st. It was from Korakuen Hall, and as usual, I'm going to give a bit of background to the promotions I talk about before actually going into the matches. So ZERO1 is a weird promotion. I've seen them talked about as like the best promotion that everyone forgets to watch, and I'd say that's I haven't watched enough Puroresu, or at least enough of the real indie Puroresu to really be able to make that call myself. But I will say that they're usually pretty good whenever I watch them, but it's so difficult to watch them because, like, I checked, and in 2018 they put out only 5 shows, and it always feels weird when I want to watch them because, like, I go from watching their New Year show from the 1st of January, which was also the show that I last watched from ZERO1, and then it's like we have like one random Korakuen Hall show like 2 months later, and then it's immediately into their version of the G1, which is the Fire Festival. And so it's sort of like I feel like I'm missing out on so much context because they are still running shows, but it's just so few of them are actually getting to see the light of day. So it always feels weird trying to follow them. But anyways, I saw people talking about this show mainly because of the main event. So I figured, you know what, Puroresu Dream is going to upload this at some point, so I'm going to check it out. So the first match, as usual for all Japanese promotions, was a young lion match. So this was between Shoki Kitamura and Tomoya Hirata. So Hirata is a big lad. I was thinking he actually sort of looks like Jumbo Tsuruta, and not just because of height. I really thought that his facial features were quite similar. And Kitamura has like a sort of superhero here. He actually sort of reminds me of Daichi Hashimoto with that it's sort of like a mohawk, but it's also like he's got like a fringe thing going on as well. It sort of looks like, sort of superhero-ish 90s anime sort of high school bully here, if anyone gets that reference. So this was a pretty standard young lion match. I'm not going to be able to give a great analysis of, first of all, a young lion match, and second of all, 2 wrestlers who I've never seen before. So you had the usual chopping, yelling, and I was thinking, oh yeah, this is fine casual stuff. But we got a few surprising spots that at least I don't usually see from young lions, and I don't know if this is the norm in ZERO1 because I've seen so few of their shows. But we saw the young lion. I'm not sure actually which one it was, but I have in my notes that we saw like some spears, quite a few rope rebound attacks, and even some more like complex suplexes and submission holds that the type that you wouldn't even usually see from at least New Japan's young lions, or even Noah or All Japan's. And yeah, I can't really say much more about this match because even though it did have a few surprises, it still was a young lion match, and to boot, it was also gypped. It was joined in progress, so I missed like at least half of it, even if that was probably only like 2 minutes of the overall 4 minutes. In the post-match, both guys got into each other's faces, and they continued to throw strikes. So fine opener. What else can you really ask for? Next match was a 6-man tag team match. It was Hiroshi Yamato, Toya Iwasaki, and Yuta Suzuki versus Super Tiger, Tatsuhito Takaiwa, and Yuko Miyamoto. And I enjoyed this match quite a bit, but sadly, again, it was joined in progress. So that means we're going to miss quite a bit of context, and I couldn't really give it like a proper rating, just like the Young Lion match. But anyways, I thought it was pretty fun. We started when the match was joined. We had Yamato hitting a hot tag, and he took out the entire opposing team. He showed some great energy, and he hit his sliding X spot. And it was funny because I had just seen Hiroshi Yamato in Noah, and he hit that spot, and the crowd, like they'd probably seen him like a few times, but it wasn't treated as a joke as it was here by the ZERO1 crowd. They sort of all laughed at it, and I'm not sure if the move is intended to come across as a joke, because he does this whole dramatic sliding X thing, and he yells it out and crosses his arms, and then he hits like a sort of weak looking I guess a strike with his arms in an X position. Anyways, Takaiwa, he was awesome. Takaiwa was, well, still is one of my favorite New Japan 90s juniors. Him and Otani, of course. And he can still deliver a decent lariat and, diving elbow after all these years, even if his movement is mostly still shot. Unlike in the No review where I mentioned Minoru, Minoru Tanaka, who, is 46 and, still doing these crazy athletic stuff, Takaiwa sadly does look to have aged. Iwasaki had a bit of a lariat battle with Takaiwa, but eventually he fell victim to the signature brainbuster from Takaiwa. The wrestler, what's his name? Where is it? Yuta Suzuki. Again, if you're a Japanese wrestler and your last name is already identified with a more popular wrestler, like the Okadas and the Suzukis, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to refer to you by your first name. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of a New Japan mark like that. I'm sorry. So Yuta, he's a pretty small dude, He looked probably like 5'5", maybe 5'7", if my memory serves correct. But he was incredibly muscular, sort of he had that sort of Taiji Ishimori build, maybe a bit more buff though. And I believe I actually heard commentary saying that he was a bodybuilder previously. So that's a pretty cool get for a wrestler. Miyamoto, he's not someone I've followed constantly, but he's someone that whenever there's a match of his, I try to go out of my way to watch it, just because he's a great general deathmatch wrestler, as well as a great all-rounder, with his high flying and everything. He didn't do much in the match, but at the very end he finally stood out after hitting a pretty great German suplex and then his running double knee strike. And then he got a moonsault double knees and one final moonsault on the bodybuilder Yuta for the win. So he was pretty much saving it all for the end there, and then showed off all he had. As I said, again, the match was gypped, and but this ended up being a very enjoyable match, even though we only saw 6 minutes of the 11 minutes in total. I recommend watching, if only just for the nostalgia of seeing Takaiwa and Miyamoto, because that's something that I popped quite big for. Next match was between the Kabuto brothers, Hide and Yasu, versus Shogun Okamoto and Yoshikazu Yokoyama. Just doing some general background onto these guys. The Kabuto brothers, I couldn't actually tell just by looking at them, but according to their online, what would you call it, the online biographies, I guess, they're twins, and I wouldn't have actually thought that, but the more I look at them, it is sort of more obvious that, I can't really tell these guys apart. And Shogun Okamoto, he apparently used to be a sumo wrestler, but I think he got in trouble with trying to bet on his own results, or in some results that he was related to, probably getting his friends to try throw matches or something so that he could make money off them. But I thought this was a decent match. This was the first match where it wasn't edited to hell, so I could actually focus on it. And so going into this match, I wasn't sure exactly what the face-heel dynamic would be, because to be honest, if I'm being brutally honest, both teams looked incredibly grimy. The twins had the same sort of outfits, that sort of, I don't know, typical sort of American indie style, it makes me think of Balls Mahoney sort of style, I guess. And then Okamoto and Yokoyama, they didn't, they weren't very impressive specimens, to say the least. So I wasn't exactly sure which way the match was going to go, but eventually it ended up being Okamoto and Yokoyama, the non-twin team, who had established that they were the heels, because Yokoyama was doing some pretty dastardly things, started using some tape to choke one of them. Okamoto, he really was the standout in this match for me. Just judging his look, which you shouldn't do that. I thought he was just going to be pretty average, but he really impressed me. The first moment he impressed me was when he started doing that sumo strike spot, the sort of thing you'd see Taue doing, except when Taue would do it, it would always look really weak, literally just as if he was pushing someone back. But when Okamoto did it here, it genuinely looked like he was actually using those palm strikes as genuine strikes. He decimated the twins with a sliding headbutt, and I had to rewatch that 5 times as soon as I saw it. I had to keep pressing rewind on my player, being like, holy shit, did he actually just connect his dome right into his dome? That was pretty insane, and it actually made me a bit worried for whichever twin it was that he crashed into. I was thinking the wrestlers backstage probably hate this guy, but I myself, I love him just because he's putting so much effort into all these spots, and he's being physical, but as long as he's not being too physical for the guys backstage, I'm all for it. There was a low blow right in front of the ref, and then an illegal weapon spot, And I was like thinking, come on, do we really need this stuff? Like, we get this enough in New Japan. It's also in ZERO1. You know, it's unnecessary. I noticed in the background there was a throw them into the guardrail moment, you know, when someone gets Irish whipped into the guardrail. But I'm not sure what happened, but Okamoto was trying to perform the Irish whip to one of the twins, but then like maybe there was someone in the way of the guardrail or something, and so like one of the twins just decided to just face plant essentially into the mat outside, and it looked really bad. No one would have noticed that except me, just because, you know, I don't know, I'm a bit stupid like that. Or, you know, maybe, no, let's not put myself down. Let's just say that I'm tuned into the details. Let's say that. Eventually, the twins regained control in the match, and I believe it was Yasu who went up to the turnbuckle and hit a swanton, but sadly we got the overused pull the ref out of the ring spot, which we see in pretty much every promotion imaginable. Like, I notice it mostly in New Japan these days, just because that's the promotion I watch the most, but I've also seen it in, you know, All Japan, Noah. It's been in Noah quite a lot recently as well. And of course, you also just see it in your general, you know, WWE, Impact, that sort of stuff. It's a really annoying spot. I really hope it goes away. It's been so overused across so many different promotions that it no longer has any effect except just annoying the hell out of me. There was interference from Okamoto, which led to the finish, but his moves in that finish were really impressive, so it sort of made up for it. He hit a backdrop suplex, which is, you know, pretty impressive. And then he also hit, I don't exactly know how to describe this move, but imagine that one of the twins was like trying to hit Okamoto with a crucifix side, like sunset flip bomb. You know what I mean? Like that sort of move that Ishii used in the G1 to counter Kenny Omega's one-winged angel. If anyone knows exactly, you know, knows that reference, that's basically what he went with, and it looked pretty decent, and I'm pretty sure he hit that, and then they ended up getting the win. It was a decent match. It was short at only 7 minutes, and it was pretty interference heavy, but again, Okamoto was pretty cool. The twins were all right, and Yokoyama was sort of just there. I wasn't really too impressed with him. In the post-match, they continued the beatdown on the twins, and I don't speak Japanese, but backstage the twins' demeanor seemed to sort of imply, you know, oh, we're just so offended by this unfair, unhonorable attacks on us. You know, we're gonna get back at you guys. You know, you'll wish you never mess with us. So, you know, fine match, 2.5 stars. Let's move on to what ended up actually being my match of the night: Shinjiro Otani versus Yuji Hino. I could probably go on for unironically, like a full hour, I'd say, just going into detail about what it is that I love about Shinjiro Otani. I first came across him watching his series of matches with Liger, and from that point, I pretty much was like, holy shit, this guy's incredible. Why haven't I heard about him? Why does he have like a 7-point rating on Cage Match? Why does no one talk about this guy as one of the best juniors ever? I need to seek out all of his matches. And 90s Japan, New Japan, is sort of hard to come by, but if you know the right sites to look on and the right way to do the digging, then you can end up finding quite a few of his matches. And honestly, Otani is my favorite junior of all time. You know, there's Kanemoto, Takaiwa, Minoru. They're all great, they're all outstanding, but honestly, Otani is my favorite. And hot take time, I think that Otani deserves the status of Liger. That's not to say, obviously I'm not ignoring the fact that Liger has had way more achievements and was obviously way more over than Otani, but from an in-ring perspective, Otani is my guy. He just had this amazing ability to sell his babyface, you know, I'm in trouble, oh no, what's going to happen, and he never made it come off as wimpy. Like, it was sometimes comical, like the facial expressions he'd make, and they're actually sort of even more comical now that his, you know, face has aged and everything, but it always came off as genuine. And in the ring, he was like a great high flyer, as well as just a generally decent grappler and striker. He honestly had it all, and, you know, there's never been a single Liger match that's got me as excited as some of Otani's greatest matches, unless they're matches that involved Liger versus Otani. That's the other instance of that. With Yuji Hino, I've been seeing quite a lot of him lately, just because he's been in Noah, and so I was sort of used to his style in the last few months, so I knew what to expect from him here. and it was really cool because Hino, you know, he's arrogant. He likes to show off. He likes to do that spot where he puts his hands behind his back and lets the opponent wail on him. So he really played that up at the start. You know, this was the you know, typical angry, grouchy veteran versus the cocky youngster story. It's just that it's funny because the cocky youngster in this instance is actually quite bigger and possibly a lot more stronger than the veteran, where usually those roles are reversed. So Hino, it was funny, right at the start, the crowd, obviously it's a 0-1 crowd, so they're right behind Otani, you know, cheering for his name and everything. And Hino, not even, still keeping his eyes on Otani, but not even directly looking at the crowd. He just holds up a finger to the hard cam, and you know, everyone got a chuckle from that, and it got a big chuckle from me. At first, it seems as if Hino was showing a bit of, you know, respect for his elder, because he's, you know, they're grappling and, you know, tying up, and he looks like he's not going to take advantage of him on the ropes, but instead what he does is, instead of making a clean break, when he you know, pats the opponent, you know, like Okada's pats on the opponent, or, you know, Nakamura's sort of, you know, resting the hands on the opponent before breaking from the ropes. Instead, he just does these massive, like, full-on palm strikes right to Otani's chest, and he's not even putting that much effort into it. You know, he's just swinging his arms, and his hands are so massive that they just connect with Otani's, you know, pectorals, and it just makes a, you know, a loud sound. And, you know, obviously Hino knows what he's doing. He's being a very naughty boy. He's trying to play it off as if, hey, I'm just making a clean break. And obviously Otani and the crowd, you know, they're smart cookies. They know what's up. And so Otani gets a bit pissed at this, and he decides to dive in, you know, and then they start with the grappling. And Hino just easily overpowers him, and they soon return to their feet. I liked how Hino, in these sort of grappling sequences, he doesn't need to rely on big strikes, as we saw with his, you know, patting during the, you know, quote-unquote clean breaks. He just uses these little, like, diggy punches, like sort of rabbit punches, and just because he's such a massive dude with so much, you know, muscle and also fat behind him, that's all he really needs to just get those, like, you know, little shots to the liver and to the side to actually wear Otani down, without even doing, like, anything serious. He's already, you know, doing damage. I also loved Hino at one point. He goes to the corner, and of course, as is usual for Otani, when Otani is in a match, he has his boots in the corner spot stolen. And Hino played it up well. You know, he's playing off his own charisma. You know, oh, I'm a big dude, I'm gonna fuck up this guy. Oh, and I'm going to steal the spot that you know, his adoring fans love so much. Hino was comfortably in control of the match at this point, and it was then that he decided to bring out his big chops. And Otani was doing his best to, you know, be like, I'm the big guy. Well, not the big, you know what I mean. Obviously, he's not a big guy, but I mean, like, you know, he means I'm the veteran. You know, I'm the guy that's had like 20 years wrestling experience. I'm not going to let this, you know, guy who's probably been wrestling for what, 10 years. I'm not going to let him get the better of me. But so Otani grits his face, you know, tries to stand up to the chops, but obviously Hino's chops are massive and he just can't do it. But when Hino goes back for the chops later on in the match, Otani really starts to fire up, and he puts on like an even stronger face than before. And whenever Otani goes for the facial expressions, it's always quite funny, but you get the point behind it, because even though he looks like he's like, basically looks like he's got some stomach issues when he's selling his, you know, his baby face, you know, fiery passion, but you understand what he's going for. He's going for, no, I'm going to stand up to these chops. I'm not going to fucking let you get to me, Hino. And eventually he starts like moving into the chops as a way to sort of work over Hino's own arm, because before Hino's just, you know, slapping right into the chest, but now Otani's chest is meeting Hino's arm before Hino's arm is properly extended. So, you know, that's my pretentious take on the kayfabe, where Otani is in fact using his chest to actually work over Hino's own arms. I know it sounds silly, but, you know, that's the idea behind it. So now that Otani has finally found himself a piece of, I guess, space that he can start to work over Hino, he starts letting loose some very vicious chops, and this is when Hino does his, you know, patented, oh, where are my hands going? They're both behind the back. Come on, boy, let me have it. And, you know, that's when Otani's really like, okay, you really want to, you know, try and embarrass me here in my own promotion? I'm gonna fuck you up. So he lets loose some vicious chops, but eventually Otani does actually gain control, and he manages to get Hino into the corner, and then it's his turn to show Hino how the boots in the corner spot is done. And I don't want to get too, again, I hate going on my pretentious rants, but I really feel there's like a magic, not a magic, okay, that's getting too much, but there's like an art behind certain wrestling spots, and there's definitely an art behind spots such as Otani's boots in the corner, because the idea is that you have to do like those little scraping kicks. You do multiples of those, and then you rebound off the ropes on the other side, and then you hit a big boot directly to the face. And there's like a certain like rhythm that you have to get there that makes it sort of, like that subreddit, like oddly satisfying, I guess. That's what this spot from Otani feels like to me, because I don't know how I can really explain this. Maybe I actually have to like clap out the pattern. So it goes like, this is fucking weird. This is a weird pro wrestling review where I'm going into the, anyways, this is the rhythm. So it's like, hey, 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 and obviously the crowd's, all getting behind that, and it's got that rhythm. So we got that bass pattern which is going, hey, 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 and then there's the build up from the crowd where they're going, oh, as Otani is running off the ropes, and then we get the big move, the hey, and again, I spend in these reviews, I spend a lot of time on like really random details, but surely there's someone out there who understands what I mean. Like, it's satisfying to see those spots where it feels like there's a rhythm to them that you can like get behind, as opposed to like, when you see like sort of like, what would you call it, like UFC fights where the strikes don't really have a pattern, and obviously that's what you expect because it's a real fight, but it's sort of like jarring. Like sometimes it can be hard to follow when you see all these like random strikes, as opposed to in our scripted fighting like pro wrestling where there's a pattern to it. It just comes off as satisfying. I don't know, that's just something I'm into. So Otani, he's pretty firmly in control at this point. He takes Hino to the outside. Hino tries to like fight back, but he actually gets his hand wrung on the outside pole. He goes for one of his chops, and obviously Otani just ducks. That's one of the trademark spots in all of wrestling right now with a monster versus a smaller guy. Like, I always see that spot with Walter, like in all of his matches, at least in his indie matches. Let's see how he goes in WWE. But there's always that spot there. Hino continues to fight on, but it's clear that he's struggling. He's been using this one arm. I'm pretty sure he only strikes with one arm, doesn't he? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's been fighting with this one arm, just laying into Otani's chest, but now Otani started fighting back and working over the arm, so now it's like, oh, damn, my name's Yuji Hino. What am I going to do now? It's funny, Otani, once Hino eventually starts getting like a bit of fight back in him and starts, letting Otani know, okay, you worked over my arm, I'm going to give you a bit back. Otani starts up his own chant with the crowd, and, the crowd laughs, they get behind him because, everyone loves Otani. Everyone should love Otani. Everyone should be like me and think that Otani is one of the greatest juniors of all time. Okay? That's how it goes. So Otani, at this point, he's basically on equal grounds with Hino. They're both able to trade strikes and suplexes, and they're basically dishing out an equal amount of damage. And I'm really loving this stuff. Like, Otani, he wasn't super well known for his like power moves back in the 90s, I'd say. Like, I always honestly appreciated him more for like his holds and his strikes. That's where I really felt that he flourished. But his suplexes are really great here, especially with Hino, who's just a big lad who's just looks great to get thrown around. And obviously on the flip side, Hino, his power moves are massive, and relative to the body size, Otani is a small guy, so he can get big. Hino can get like big impact out of throwing Otani around as well. Otani was locking in quite a few submission holds, working over Hino's arm, but it wasn't really leading to anything substantial, even though Hino was still in quite a lot of pain. Hino managed to get Otani up for the fucking bomb, great name, but Otani escaped, and he got a really close near fall with a big lariat he hit. And at one point, I heard the commentators, I believe they said Lariat Carnival, if I can like sort of pass my way through the Japanese language. I believe that's what they said. And at the end of the match, it definitely was. Both guys were trading some, monster lariats. But in the end, obviously, Hino would get the win. This cocky youngster, god damn it, he would put away the beloved best junior of all time, Shinjiro Otani, with the fucking bomb. So this is a pretty standard, story. Arrogant monster versus methodical, technical veteran. It's a definite recommend. Very good match. It was definitely my match of the night. I also really enjoyed the main event, which I know everyone watched the show for and is probably listening to my review to hear my thoughts of. I like that match as well, but honestly, something about Otani and Hino, it just really worked for me. So in the post match, we see Hino receive an award. And this isn't a big point, but it's just he gets like one of those like hilariously oversized checks, and at the same time, Otani is being rolled out of the ring like in the same frame, like only like a few meters away from Hino. I say like and like a lot. Those are my two crutch words. I've been like editing this entire time, trying to get rid of when I start a sentence by saying like. Look, guys, I'm sorry, you guys have been hounding me each week, you know, giving me bad criticism. I take back what I said at the start. Everyone's been on my back about me saying and like. You know what? They're my crutch words. This is only my 3rd episode. Damn it, I'm going to get better. Stay with me. You want to see my renaissance when I finally get rid of these crutch words and I can... God, now crutch word has become a crutch word. Well, I guess a crutch sentence? A crutch phrase? Yeah, crutch phrase. Anyways, back to this review. So 3.5 stars, good match, definite recommend, especially if you're into Otani or Hino. Both are pretty sick dudes. So we come to the next match, and this is for the NWA International Lightweight Tag Team titles. It's quite a mouthful. We have the champions Fuminori Abe and Ikuto Hidaka versus Hagane Shino and Sugi. So Sugi is one of the most underrated high flyers of all time, in my opinion. There's not a massive amount of his material out there, but like if you go and watch his stuff from, I believe he's done some stuff in All Japan and Noah, and especially his Michinoku Pro stuff, and you just find any other indies he's been in, it's always some insane stuff. I'm always questioning myself, like, why does no one, like, we have so many athletic, acrobatic wrestlers on the indie scene today, how come they're not doing the sort of stuff that Sugi's doing? Because it doesn't look like it's too difficult, it's just very, like, innovative, you know? For example, on his way to the ring, Sugi does like a rope-to-rope moonsault, you know? Like some people, like Ibushi will maybe get on the ropes and maybe do a backflip. Okada will like, you know, rebound himself over the apron side into the ring. This dude does a bloody rope-to-rope moonsault. You know, you got to have quite a lot of faith in your abilities to do that before the match has even begun. Imagine fucking that up and then having to do the match while knowing that this entire crowd thinks that you're a bit of a fucking idiot. Anyways, Sugi's awesome. Abe, Fuminori Abe, he is also an outstanding junior star. He's quite different to Sugi in that I believe he stands out way more for his speed and strikes. You know, every match I've seen him in, he's usually always been the star. So this was a really cool pairing, and I was really excited for this. So, you know, hopes were high. Did it pay off? Well, it was a pretty good match. We started with the usual 50-50 grappling from Abe and Shino at the start, and then we jumped to some, light strike exchanges. Sugi and Hidaka got in the ring, and the match picked up with Sugi immediately getting in all of his acrobatic stuff. So, you know, we went from the grappling, the polite, applause from the crowd, and then some light striking. But then Sugi's really he's the big boy that brings, the stuff that we're looking for, or at least what I was looking for. Ikuta Hidaka, he managed to fight off the 2-on-1 assault, and he tagged an Abe who immediately began to showcase his own style. So he was like, oh shit, Sugi's in here getting all his shit in, so I'm gonna get in all mine. And he started showing off like a bunch of, strikes and his crazy speed, and he went through like a variety of different holds out of nowhere. So, Abe really is like an all-rounder. So Sugi's basically the not to sound derogatory, but he's a spot monkey. Abe comes across as way more of an all-rounder, and I'm really excited to see this kid progress because he's only like, I know he's definitely not above 30, but is he like early 20s, I think? That's scary if he's early 20s because he's got so much room to develop. Abe was so committed to just remaining in control after he got that hot tag from his partner that he even ended up trying to bite Sugi's boot when he was like, shit, I'm not going to be able to get this calf slicer or whatever move it was going for. So he was like, you know what? Mouth on boot. That's going to be my go-to. Some of the strike exchanges were a bit contrived, and I hate making this complaint, but it does have to be said that it did quite frequently look like the wrestlers on the receiving end of the strikes were sort of just moving to and fro position and sort of stupidly just waiting for the strikes. And obviously that's what they're doing because it's pro wrestling, but it sort of takes you out of the moment. But then I'm immediately brought back in just because the strikes that are executed, even if the partner who's receiving them looks like they're, pretty foolish for being in the spot to receive them, the strikes themselves are still, have like decent technique, especially from Abe. So, I couldn't really complain too much on that front. There were some surprisingly stiff strikes from Sugi, and he was going up against Abe and eventually managed to wear him down, which I wasn't really, ready for. I was expecting, more high flying, but, damn, Sugi's got a few strikes in him. There was a funny moment where Abe tagged in Hidaka, but Hidaka like grimaced in response immediately to the tag, and I guess it was implied that because Abe did like a very dramatic he threw himself up in the air before taking Hidaka in, and so Hidaka was just playing off like, shit, man, why the fuck did you smash my hand? I gotta go wrestle, and you've already fucking injured me. So that was pretty funny. Sugi took a lot of the tag team moves from Hidaka and Abe from this point, even taking a worked shoot punch from Abe, and then a pretty stiff roundhouse kick from Hidaka. But he eventually regained control with a sick Spanish fly out of nowhere, and then a moonsault, which he hit off the second, I can't remember if it was the second or top rope from, the middle of the ring, but he got caught, but then he transitioned that into a tilt-a-whirl DDT, and then he had a 450 splash from the middle of the top rope. Like, from the middle of the ring, from the top rope. This dude is crazy talented, and he just brought a great dynamic because, you've got Abe with the stiff strikes and the speed, and then you've got Sugi just pulling out some, audacious shit. Is audacious the right word? Am I using that word properly? I should know this stuff. You know what? I'm just going to throw it out. Sugi's offense was audacious, and even if that's not the word I intend to use, I'm going to stand by it. His offense was audacious, and I loved it. Another great and potentially a bit of a cheesy moment was when Sugi was going for his signature run along the ropes and hit the dropkick spot, which is that is a move that we need to see more of in wrestling. It's just so creative. He essentially runs the entire length of one rope. But anyways, he's going for that. He hits the dropkick and he's aiming for Hidaka, but Abe runs in and covers up Hidaka, and so he takes the full brunt of the force and protects his partner from taking that damage. And it reminded me of that one famous, I at least know it's done in one famous 90s All Japan tag match between Kobashi and Misawa versus the Holy Demon Army, Kawada and Taue, and it came off a bit sort of hokey because it's this is for the NWA International Lightweight Tag Team titles, which aren't exactly the most prestigious tag team titles in the world. And, ZERO1 isn't the most prestigious promotion, and this first of the year show isn't the most, the biggest show to pull that sort of stuff out. But I still thought it was pretty cute, Abe, protecting his fellow champion, his partner. After that, Abe and Hidaka somehow managed to regain control of the match, and Hidaka really got his moment to shine. The early part of the match, well, at least the entirety of the match up until that point, had been taken up mostly by Abe and Sugi, facing off between, who's going to wow the crowd more. But then Hidaka came out right at the end, and he really impressed me. I don't watch much of him, but whenever I do, he always impresses me because he had a series of great strikes and suplexes, all with fantastic impact. And then he got a Japanese, I believe it's called, let me check my notes, I want to get this right. Yeah, a cyclone suplex. And I believe that the commentators called it a Japanese Ocean. And I went up and looked at Hidaka's online resume on, ProRes system and those sorts of things. It's annoying ever since Wikipedia took away the moves for wrestlers, and I couldn't see this move, the Japanese Ocean, or any sort of cyclone suplex listed anywhere. So I think this might be a new move. That was probably why commentators sort of put it over, because they were going, Japanese Ocean, Japanese Ocean. So I guess we saw a new finishing move debuted, maybe? Or maybe these online resources I've been looking at just haven't updated their info with the ZERO1 roster's moves. If you don't know what the Cyclone Suplex is, and I don't blame you, because before watching this match, if you asked me what it was, I would have had no clue. It's a move at least I've commonly seen used by a lot of Joshi wrestlers. So basically, you get the opponent up in the electric chair position, I believe it's called. And if you don't know what that means, I at least think it's called the electric chair position. Anyways, if you don't know what that means, then I hate doing this because I always feel like I make so many New Japan references that it's really going to scare away the non-New Japan Pro Wrest fans, because there's actually quite a, surprising as it may be to a lot of New Japan fans alone, there are quite a lot of Pro Wrest fans who just don't like New Japan, and they have their reasons, but I'm going to have to make another New Japan reference just because, it's something that everyone can relate to because everyone knows of New Japan. So basically, it's like the one-winged angel position, except instead of swinging one leg over the shoulder, what Hidaka did was he locked the wrists in front of his own face, so he did the cross wrist position. Still had Sugi's legs over his shoulders, and then he just drove himself backwards and went right into a bridge and ended up getting the pin. So yeah, this was another pretty good match. I feel bad because, what was his name? Shino? Something like that. Let me check my notes. Sorry. Hagane Shino. He didn't really stand out to me much. Maybe it's just because I'm familiar with Abe and Sugi so much more. And obviously just because the idea was that Hidaka was going to get the win in this match, because in the post-match, he basically challenged Sugi for, I think, both of his junior titles, because he actually has 2 NWA junior related titles, so that was the whole idea. And yeah, I feel bad because the guy's in his mid-30s. I actually thought he looked quite young, so I was thinking, it's okay if he doesn't stand out too much, he's got time. But yeah, I'm just looking at, he's 35, so not much time longer for him to stand out. So yeah, felt bad about that, but what can you do? If the guy doesn't stand out, he doesn't stand out. The next match, the penultimate match on the show, was for the NWA Intercontinental Tag Team titles. Quick side note, what is the difference or what is the meaning in Pro Wrest kayfabe between international and intercontinental? Because the previous match was for the international lightweight tag team titles, and this is for the intercontinental tag team titles. Doesn't it imply the same thing? Like, obviously there are going to be multiple different continents and nations, and there are nations within continents. Like, so what's, like, these committees, these fictional committees within the wrestling world that come up with these names, how do they do it? Anyways, this was between the champions, Chris Weiss and Taru, versus Masato Tanaka, the other Tanaka, my less favorite Tanaka, but still pretty damn good, and Takuya Sugawara. And I was a bit confused because on Cage Match, they didn't list Chris Weiss and Taru as being the Voodoo Murderers. And on Twitter, people who were way better versed in ZERO1 were also confused. I was looking at some tweets, and they were also saying, wait, so is there a split in Voodoo Murderers? And I don't exactly know what that means, but I do know that there have been various iterations of the Voodoo Murderers, because I was surprised to come back to ZERO1 and still see that the Voodoo Murderers are around, because they've been around since like 2005 or something, and I'm pretty sure they started in like All Japan, I think, and they've just been going from like promotion to promotion. Like, they literally must be one of the longest running stables in all of pro wrestling history, surely? Like, this is at least over 10 years, almost 15 years. And I've always heard from people that they've been, pretty bad, sort of like Suzuki Gun, Noah-ish sort of heels who just cause shit. And from the few matches I've seen of theirs, I've never been too impressed, and that was the case here. This was like, a 2.5 star match, if that. It was mostly, the Voodoo Murderers, if they are the Voodoo Murderers. I'll just say Vice and Taru for the, sake of simplicity. It was basically them getting in control, getting their fellow Voodoo Murderers, oh god, I'm using it again, getting their fellow stablemates or whatever to help out with a bunch of interference, and really just making it difficult for Tanaka and Sugawara to actually, get any momentum going. I was pretty surprised to see that even though the quote-unquote Voodoo Murderers got the advantage right away, Tanaka and Sugawara actually managed to fight them off rather quickly and actually gain control for themselves pretty soon after. I hadn't seen Masato Tanaka in a match since I actually watched ZERO1's Happy New Year show from the previous year, from 2018, and I really thought there was a dramatic difference. I'm not sure it was just the way he was working, or maybe it genuinely is just age, but he just didn't look as mobile here, He was hitting some lariats, and they just didn't have the energy behind him. It didn't even, even Takaiwa, he looked to have way more energy behind all of his more physical moves. But the thing is that Tanaka still had, that trademark sort of guttural scream behind him, so, you still had that passion. It was at this moment that I was really confused, because after Tanaka and Sugawara start getting control in the brawl, we then cut to Tanaka putting Taru through a table. And then back in the ring, all this while, Chris Weiss is totally absent. I have no idea where he is, or maybe I just didn't notice him because he just had no presence whatsoever. But Taru is getting totally worked over, and he actually ends up getting to the point of bleeding. And I was really confused, because I was like, what is the heel-face dynamic here? It doesn't even make sense, because the heels got the early start, and at least in wrestling logic, I know you don't have to always go by this, but it was just jarring to see the heels get in control with an early jump, but then the faces get in control, and then they do sort of heel moves by, putting the guy through the table and making him bleed. And obviously, I know in storyline they deserve it, because, the Voodoo Murderers, if that's what we're calling them, I know that the general idea is that they're sort of always causing chaos and, being shit stirrers, and so they probably deserve all of this. But it's just weird to see the baby faces being in control at the very start of the match. Like, when you have dastardly heels, isn't the idea usually to have them be in control at the start? Maybe ZERO1 was like, nah, that's way too traditional, we're going to do our own thing. But it just felt so weird, because eventually the Voodoo Murderers, again, I'm just going to keep calling them that, eventually Vice and Taru, the Voodoo Murderers, do gain control. And, Taru goes back asserting his heel streak as he opens Sugawara up with some sharp instrument, and Vice at this time, he starts working over Tanaka. He takes him back up to the stands where they were at the start. The rest of Voodoo Murderers are all standing around the ring offering little bits of help, and at this point, I had been enjoying the match just because it was, even though it was really weird, it was interesting to see the babyfaces actually gain control in a very, violent match up against a traditionally dominant heel team. But I was really, when you see all the ankle little pulls and that sort of stuff, it just starts to wear away at you. the match had really slowed down at this point. We went from seeing, you know, Tanaka teeing off on people and, you know, putting someone through a table, and then we just got like a slow, bloody brawl, like something right out of the 70s and 80s, you know, something that I'd see, you know, going through the All Japan archive, that sort of thing. And I know that there's definitely a market for that, but that's really never been my style. Like, if you're going to do like a bloody brawl match, as sad as it is, you really have to make it like a believable brawl. Like, you have to go for like a Nokiism sort of era level violence for me to actually believe it, because I can't really deal with, you know, someone slowly having their face grinded over and it doesn't look like anything's actually being done to them, but then they take their hands away and somehow they're bleeding profusely. So it's like, oh, well, they must have obviously, you know, cut themselves in order to get that blood going. You know, I just fall out of the what's it called? I fall out of the immersion with it when we get this stuff, especially when the pace is so slow, you know? This was like the worst of the Suzuki-gun and Bullet Club shenanigans. And again, apologies to the non-New Japan fans out there for whom I am obviously annoying with my New Japan references, if I can get the word out. But, you know, it's just how I universalize my examples. And yeah, this shit was really annoying. Luckily, we got some interesting stuff when Sugawara started firing up. It's always weird when like wrestlers, at least in pro wrestling, start firing up, because it's like, oh, they were being beaten up beforehand, and you know the beating hasn't really increased that much in intensity, but at this moment they've decided they're going to start screaming and you know making wide-eyed glares at their attackers. And anyways, it was fun. He starts firing back at Taru, but eventually we got another low blow spot right in front of the ref once again, and we already had one of those tonight. And you know, it's just really annoying to see that sort of stuff. Even if the match wasn't super competitive up until that point, and we still had a bunch of interference, it's still really annoying to see the referees who are meant to be, like, they play an important part in these matches. You know, they're meant to be the final authority. They're meant to add drama to the match. If we see the ref looking like a buffoon like this, as we've seen Red Shoes look so many times, it just takes you out of the match for a bit. And it's like, okay, what is the point of this wrestling? Why would anyone sign up to wrestle for this promotion when they know that they're going to get screwed over, right? And the ref's not going to help them out at all. It just doesn't make sense, you know? That stuff, you know, it just really gets to me. I just had to make a quick cut here, just because I noticed my laptop was overheating, and sadly the way I've set up my audio system in order to get what I think is the best sounding quality, it was picking up that sound. So sorry for those last few minutes. If you listened, you'd probably hear like the little hissing in the background. Luckily that's gone now, and now we can go back to reviewing this match, which I hope I'll get out of the way very soon, because I've spent way too long on it. So Tanaka had a hot tag at this point, and again, his movement, it's pretty short, but you know, you still get that fun fire from him. Vice, he got a big moment to himself, and he finally stood out in this match for one point. He basically got I can't remember if it was Tanaka or if it was Sugawara. He got one of them up in a suplex position, and he held it for, like, I'd say genuinely at least 30 seconds, and you know, that's basically him forcing the crowd to pay attention to him. And, you know, yep, you got strength, but I wasn't super impressed with it. Then we got some more Voodoo Murderers run-ins, and including Yokoyama and Okamoto from the second match of the night, I believe it was. So, yeah, it was cool to see them again, although I wish they showed up in a better fashion than doing all this stuff. What was really funny was because they did a spot where they distracted the ref while the Voodoo Murderers were running in. But then we go back to my point before about the ref seeing a low blow and like some other illegal shit right in front of him and not doing anything. So why would the Voodoo Murderers, like, why are they so stupid? Why do they bother distracting the ref? It makes no sense. And even if you wanted to go with, oh, okay, well, the first time the ref saw the low blow and the interference, that time he was giving them a warning, but if he saw it again, then he'd be serious, and that's why they had to distract him this time. Well, then, what is the in-world explanation for him not being able to either hear all the commotion of everyone running in and all the illegal shit going on, or he could probably even feel the vibrations? Like, even if the ref was deaf, he could feel the vibrations of the ring and the ropes and everything. I'm getting way too worked up about this, but again, it's just stupid. These stupid rules are like of the pro wrestling universe, and they go across all promotions. And again, it's not even just in Japan. You know, it just, once you've watched wrestling for so long, you see this shit just a few too many times, and it fucking gets to you, you know? And here I am, you know, it's 10:30 p.m. and I'm getting annoyed about a fucking Voodoo Murderers tag match where there's way too much interference. So anyways, we got a pretty cheesy ending where the babyfaces end up, you know, fighting back. They're putting up a big fight. They've been, totally decimated, brawled, and, every tech that's been used against them. And like, it's cheesy, but at the end of the day, I didn't want the Voodoo Murderers to be tag champs as long as I was going to, continue watching ZERO1 at least for this year. So I'm at least glad, even if the story was stupid, that they had so much of an advantage and still lost to the babyfaces. So, I was happy with that. We got some decent falls from Sugawara. He had a unique move after unique move, and he finally put Taru away. He had a top rope move that the commentators called a Stardust Press, but he actually sort of fucked it up. So instead of doing the Stardust Press, hey, again, for those big New Japan fans out there, that's Naito's old finisher. But instead of actually hitting the Stardust Press, he hit the move, but only his legs actually connected. So instead it looked like a sort of like jazzy sort of leg, top rope leg drop. It actually looks like that would be a really sick move on its own, but it just looked really awkward because he clearly wasn't intending for that. So yeah, typical story of the baby faces. Well, technically not typical because again, they got that weird advantage at the start, but then they lost control and then they ended up getting totally destroyed, but then they, miraculously came back at the end. It wasn't a very good story. The match was okay. The final few minutes when Sugawara is trying his best to, really put the match away, that really saved it. I ended up going 2 3/4 stars on this. It's not must see. The most interesting parts are at the very start and the very end, so, check it out if only for that. And now, finally, we come to the main event of the evening. As I said earlier, this was what most people were watching the show for in the first place, and most likely this is what most people were looking forward to me talking about when they clicked on this, at least if they were a ZERO1 fan. So, Sekimoto versus Sato. Yeah, this was obviously going to be two dudes hitting the hell out of each other, and I was super hyped for it. I saw quite a bit of, kerfuffle. There's got a bit of a negative connotation to it, kerfuffle. What's a good word? Hype. Yeah, that's a word. Of course. How could I not have thought of the word hype? There's quite a bit of hype for this match because Sekimoto is a beast. He's more likely to hit you with a massive lariat, and Sato is more likely to hit you with like a really like deep sounding, stiff but not like sharp sounding sort of elbow. Like it's more like a sort of sound, whereas Sekimoto's is more of a sort of sound. Again, only the best analysis on this podcast. Anyways, I was really hyped for this match, especially watching Sato come to the ring. Both guys entered from the entrances from the crowd, and Sato, he looked like a damn like Sith Lord or like a ring wraith as he made his way through. And Sato always has that like crazy seriousness about him, and he's always got that sly smile to him. So whenever you see Sato like that, you always know you're in for a good time. So as usual with most Japanese, or at least modern Japanese title matches or big matches, this started off with drumroll 50-50 grappling. It seems that like even the indie promotions, they have to follow the sort of layout set by the bigger promotion, mainly New Japan, of having the match start out like you can't start out with one person getting dominant right away. It's got to be a testing of strength, people saying, oh, can I do this? Just gotta test the waters. So we started with the grappling. Eventually we got more of the showboating side from both wrestlers as they started exchanging shoulder tackles, the signature Puroresu spot where, one person comes off the ropes, oh, shoulder tackle, oh, you didn't take me down? Oh, okay, well, how about you give it a go? All right, I will then. That's me doing a little play in the middle of the show to explain that very common spot to you. And Sato, he eventually was like, okay, I need to make it clear that I'm the one who's going to be in control here. And he started delivering some stiff AF kicks. You know what? I'm just going to say it because these kicks were stiff as fuck. And when I think of stiff kicks, I usually think of, the sound's more coming from just the pure connection of the shin to the body. It's never actually like a hard-hitting kick, but here it really did look like Sato was just kicking the absolute shit out of Sekimoto, and Sekimoto was doing a great job selling. Like Sato ends up putting him in the corner, and he continues throwing those kicks, and Sekimoto, he's basically gasping for air, spluttering, and his eyes, he just looks totally vacant, like shocked, as if like his soul's like left his body from all these kicks. And he tries to fire up. He does his guttural scream. I say that about a lot of wrestlers. I comment on their guttural screams, and I use that exact wording, but it's true. He lets out that it's sort of a like to use for lack of a better word, it's sort of a sissy, sort of wimpy scream. He goes like, ah, you know, that's my impression of it. And he tries to fire back with, I believe it was some forearms or, you know, some arm related strikes, and Sato just sort of took it and then just like delivered a stiff elbow and just sent him right back down. So Sekimoto, he's pretty, you know, the champ, he's not in a good position, but he eventually gains control. He starts you know, using his massive size. Well, I mean, massive muscles, because, you know, he's a big muscly dude, but he's like my height, I think. You know, should I be giving that away on the podcast? I don't care. He's like 5'10" or 5'11" or something, I think. That's like about my height, I think. Or is he even shorter? God, if he's like 5'6" or something, I don't want to be aligning myself with that. Not that there's anything wrong with being short. I just got to get that clear. God, this podcast has gone off track. Anyways, so Sekimoto starts using his strength, his musculature, his power, whatever you want to call it, to fight off Sato's holds. And, you know, that's where we get those test of might sort of sequences. And then he applies his own holds. But like Sato, he's just like, no, dude, you can, okay, yeah, you're a big dude, you're a big muscular dude, you're still not gonna be able to get the better of me. Sekimoto manages to get Sato down on the ground, and so, well, down on the mat. So he goes up to the turnbuckle and he goes to hit a splash, but instead Sato gets his knees up, and it's really sickening watching this because Sekimoto just bounces off Sato's knees when he connects. And, you know, we talk about, you know, moves looking pulled or worked or whatever, and that really just looked genuinely like how the fuck can you work that? Like, you're just falling, like, in a guy with that amount of mass, Sekimoto, just falling on those knees and bouncing the way he did. Like, you can't fake that, you know. Like, this looked like some sort of like sandbox video game physics right there. It was pretty crazy. So at this point, it's an even match again. You know, Sato was in control at the very start with all of his strikes. Then Sekimoto started using his power and size to get the advantage. But now everything's pretty even. Sato, he released some disgusting headbutts. And obviously, ever since the infamous Sakura Genesis incident with Shibata, where he headbutted Okada, and everyone thinks that's the exact moment that ended his career. I'm pretty sure there's a bit of debate about that. Like, wasn't the idea that he was actually dehydrated, and, you know, there's other factors leading to that. But anyways, ever since then, shoot headbutts have been very controversial. And, you know, I have to admit it, I love headbutts, you know, I love the shoot headbutts. I love the cringeworthy feeling I feel when I hear that thudding sound of two domes colliding. I hope people understand when I'm saying domes, I'm referring to heads. Maybe, is that a New Zealand thing? Or am I just like projecting, like trying to make my own nation feel like it's some special thing, like, oh, you guys just don't understand our words outside of this nation. Anyways, yeah, so I love the headbutts. Sato hit like multiple headbutts, and, you know, Sekimoto is selling them, well, can you call it selling? Because it's just a fucking stiff head right in your own head. I don't think you can really sell that. It was funny because Sekimoto was basically going to die for my enjoyment. I immediately take back calling that funny, but that's the idea that it was. You know, it was Sekimoto, this massive dude, but even he's getting totally destroyed by this, you know, vicious, you know, pinpoint accurate striker in Sato. Sekimoto eventually did come back. You know, the headbutts, you know, didn't put him away forever. Shock. And it was funny because he hit I also use "it's funny" as a lead-in line a lot. That's another thing. That's like another crutch phrase that I need to work on. Anyways, he hits a stunner, and the stunner, I've noticed from watching Japanese wrestling across various generations, it's always a very weird move, like the stunner or the cutter, because it never really seems to connect with Japanese audiences as it does with Western audiences. So, like Johnny Ace from All Japan, he had the Ace cutter, and I remember watching him hit that, and I'm not sure if the move just wasn't ever built up properly, but it just never seemed to work. Like, the crowd would never really react big time to it. And then also there was Satoshi Kojima. I'm pretty sure the Koji Cutter, his version, I feel like that used to be his finishing move, but at least in modern New Japan, like the last 5 years, it's always just been like a random move he pulls out, and no one ever really even pops for it. So when Sekimoto brought out this stunner here, it looked sort of weird, because the stunner is different. That's when you drag the head into your opponent's head into the shoulder, and the crowd was sort of like, oh, like, it was as if they were saying, oh, we know that this is meant to be a move, so obviously we understand that Sekimoto is now in control, and thus we enjoy it. And it was a very weird feeling, but Sekimoto immediately got rid of that feeling, because then he rebounded off the ropes. Did he rebound off the ropes? Either way, he floored Sato with a massive lariat. So we went from the feeling of, oh, I guess Sekimoto's in control, into, holy shit, yeah, Sekimoto's in control. He just decked the fuck out of Sato. So that was a pretty sick moment. So Sekimoto is like fully in control at this point. He hits a series of lariats, and it looked like right before he went for the finish, I think he was meant to go for a headbutt of his own. He grabbed Sato's arm and like brought him in while also himself leaning in, and his head only seemed to connect with Sato's chest, but I think it was meant to be implied that he was headbutting Sato right under the chin. So that looked a bit awkward, but either way, he then hit like a bridging single wrist clutch German. That's as I've written it in my notes, and I remember, yeah, he didn't go for both wrists, which is very odd. Maybe Sato was just doing such a good job selling being knocked dizzy from that headbutt, which actually didn't connect, that he decided, you know what, I'm just going to let this wrist go limp. You're going to have to do it by yourself. And so, yep, he hit that bridging German suplex variation and put him away. So I totally understand the calls for this being the match of the night. For me, though, it just wasn't as diverse in range compared to Otani versus Hino. I thought the combat shown in Otani versus Hino was way more complex, because don't get me wrong, I do love matches where it's just stiff as hell, strikes, forearms, elbows, knees, headbutts, kicks. I love that sort of stuff. But if you don't take that formula and do something like creative with it, and you just keep doing the sort of same few moves over and over, I'm eventually going to not hate it, but I'm going to lose a bit of interest. I would have liked to see like a few more power moves, or maybe even some extended submission hold sequences. I think that really would have been like a nice change of pace. So then when you finally brought the stiff strikes back, they would have felt more important. The match was only... The Samurai broadcast version that I saw, at least, it was only 14 minutes, and apparently the match in total was 19 minutes. So you'd hope that the Samurai TV editors would have only included the best moments, but it is always possible, just because of time constraints, that we would have missed out on a few more sick spots that, would have been awesome to see. You would have thought, though, if that was the case, they probably would have just edited these earlier tag matches, like either like way down to like a minute, or just totally edited them out. So, I'm not sure if we're missing anything too substantial, but let's see, what did this get on Cage Match, if I just check, because this got its own individual match guide listing. So it currently has a 7.86, and that's sort of where I was at. I was at 3.5 stars, about equal to Hino and Otani, but I just put Hino and Otani above it. And speaking of which, in the post-match, Yuji Hino comes out and he challenges Sekimoto for the ZERO1 World Heavyweight title. So that's going to be Sekimoto's next challenger. Hopefully that makes tape, because that is a fucking awesome match that I'm looking forward to. I was slightly let down by Sekimoto and Sato, not only because I knew how stiff they are, but also because I saw a lot of hype behind this match going into it. So I was left a little bit disappointed, but again, I'm really excited for Sekimoto versus Hino. Let's hope that can make tape, and maybe they'll give it a better go, a more creative. Maybe Hino can bring that creativity that he had with Otani, and he can bring that to Sekimoto, and they can have a stiff as hell match while still being, a compelling story. So now I'll just sum up my final thoughts on the on this ZERO1 show, and then we'll jump into the Big Japan review. So first of all, I thought it was really adorable how at the end of the show, it starts with, I can't remember who it was leading, but, someone starts with 3, 2, 1, and then all the crowd is 0-1, that deserved its own little note on the podcast, because I thought that was really adorable. But anyways, overall, this was a very solid show. The last ZERO1 show I actually watched was, in fact, the, I can't remember if I already said this, but it was the Happy New Year show from last year. And, I thought that was an alright show. I believe that was Obata versus Masato Tanaka in the final, in the main event. And that was another good match. But again, that was another sort of, quote-unquote strong style match that I thought was good, but sort of overrated, at least at the time. And here, I thought the card was way more solid. So I'll just go through all the matches. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through each of them as in-depth as I already have, because obviously, once again, I've been overkill in that. But I'm just going to quickly summarize them. So the Young Lion match, Kitamura versus Hirata, that was good. Can't really give it a rating. Then the 6-man tag, that was fun. I really liked the stuff we saw from Takaiwa and Miyamoto. Again, we didn't see enough of it for me to really rate it. The twins versus Okamoto and Yokoyama, that was a decent match. I liked what I saw from Okamoto. Some annoying interference towards the end, but it was alright. 2.5 stars. Then we got Otani versus Hino. This was my match of the night. I really enjoyed this. Both guys brought something different to the match, and that's honestly why I ended up enjoying it most of the other matches. Abe and Hidaka versus Shino and Sugi. Abe and Sugi, they basically were the stars of the entire match, and then Hidaka got a really good run at the end. It'll be really cool to see him versus Sugi, because I think they can have some really good chemistry, and as long as Sugi gets all of his stuff in, I'm pretty sure Hidaka will be able to keep up, and he could even end up playing like a really great babyface if he actually, puts in a good challenge for the title. Chris Weiss and Taru versus Tanaka and Sugawara. It was okay at the start, better at the end, pretty dull, if not bad, middle period. Not a super big fan of, invasion heel stables and, everything that comes from that. But at least, hey, at least the heels are no longer champions. It was, yeah. Oh, did I give a rating for? Anyways, this was 2 3/4 stars, and just for the junior tag title match before, that was actually 3 1/4 stars. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then, of course, the main event, Sekimoto Sato, stiff as hell, bit generic, but very fun, 3.5 stars. So, overall, a good show, like a 7 out of 10 show, which for me is hard to get, and I don't want to, toot my own horn, make myself come off like an elitist, but, this was a good show. And I definitely have reason to follow ZERO1 more diligently in the future, even though obviously it's going to depend on how many matches make tape. It would be cool if they became another streaming, if they got another streaming service, but then I'd have so many streaming services to subscribe to. Anyway, you can't have issue with more product being put out on the market, Anyways, now let us jump into the Big Japan review. As is usual with Big Japan, they have decided to not give this event an actual title, so you won't be able to search for it just by name, but it is the 2nd of January show from Korakuen Hall, similar to the exact same place, where ZERO1 had their Happy New Year show just the day before. So, Big Japan has always been a promotion that I've always wanted to get into, and I've always watched like a few matches, and some of them I've been like, oh, this isn't my style, and some of them I've been like, wow, I love this, I really need to follow this, but I've never really committed myself. But I really wanted to follow it last year after the reign of Takeda. That was his name, wasn't it? Yeah, Takeda. He had that amazing match with Asami Kodaka, and that ended up being my runner-up match of the year. And I'm totally not a deathmatch guy at all, but yeah, I love that match. It was fantastic. And so, new year, I'm going to try following Big Japan as well, so I can just keep up with the podcast. The main reason I actually chose to review the ZERO1 and Big Japan shows in one combined episode, not just because they're only one day apart, but also because, and also not just because they're at the same place, but mainly because so many of the wrestlers from the ZERO1 show would actually end up on this Big Japan show the very day after. So I thought, there's a bit of continuity there, because we'll see some wrestlers later on, like Sekimoto or, who are Sato, and we'll see them, even Fuminori Abe, and we'll have in our mind, yes, we know exactly what you did the other day, and so I thought that's just cute about it. So the opening match had me really confused. This was the Brahmins, Brahmin Ki and Brahmin Shu, Kazuki Hashimoto, and Yuya Aoki versus Banana Senga, Tsutomu Usagi, Kota Sekifuda, and Tatsuhiko Yoshino. In trademark copyright Western pro-fan fashion, I'm going to say that I butchered those Japanese names. But anyways, this match had me thinking, wait a second, am I watching DDT or Big Japan? Because this was like full-on comedy. It was clipped, so we joined in the middle, and I had no idea what was happening. But the one thing I do remember was that there was some idea where one of the Brahmins is in the corner, and there's some paper being held over him, and I think 2 young lions, or maybe just 2 other sort of youngish wrestlers, they're sort of fighting with each other even though they're on the same team. Then one of them scoop slams the other, covers him in ink, and then he rubs himself over his friend who's covered in ink in order to get the ink all over his face. And he's doing that sort of downward dog sort of like squat thrust sort of thing that I see is popular, at least in a lot of Japanese wrestling dojos. So he did that, and obviously the crowd sort of wooed because, hey, there's some implied homosexuality over there. And then there's a big build up to him running into the one Brahmin to, I guess, sort of like paint him over with the ink on his face. And I really didn't get this at all. The Brahmins ended up getting the win, I'm pretty sure. Just a weird little comedy match. Next match was Fuminori Abe, Takada, Shinobu versus Akira Hyodo, Takuho Kato, and Yuki Ishikawa. Sorry, it's late. My eyes are sort of squinty. I can't really read these properly. So yeah, here we've got Abe, the day after defending his tag team titles in ZERO1. This was a pretty standard young lion match because Hyodo, Kato, and Ishikawa, I thought so at the time just because they're all wearing black trunks, and I later confirmed by going on Cage Match and seeing they've all got like less than a year of experience, so they're the young lion team, so you see a bunch of, pretty basic exchanges. I had difficulty distinguishing between all the wrestlers. The only two that I knew from this match were obviously Abe and Shinobu, so the other four I was pretty unaccustomed with. But I did know that Takeda, I could tell which one he was because by process of elimination, he was the other man on Abe and Shinobu's team. I identified him just because he was the ripped dude. That's what I've written in my notes. And he ended up getting the win with the German suplex. So, yeah, Young Lion match, pretty basic. Young Lions looked fine, but I didn't see anything too remarkable. The next match was the first... not, I guess, proper match, because it was still quite heavily clipped and, joint in progress, quite gypped. But it was the first match where I was really, enjoying myself. Like, that previous match, that was like a 2-star. Not to say it was necessarily bad, but it just wasn't very impressive, and it was quite short. But this match, Kamatani and Hashimoto versus Sato and Nakanoe, this was quite a good match. And honestly, if it wasn't cut, if we hadn't seen only 6 minutes of the 11 total minutes, then I really think this could have been a good or even, a very good match. So, obviously, we've got Kohei Sato, fresh off of his failed title challenge for the ZERO1 heavyweight title the day before in this exact same arena. And there he had a pretty stiff match with Sekimoto, if you remember 20 or however many minutes earlier when I was just discussing this match. And here he was once again up against some rather stiff competitors in Hashimoto and Kamatani. So the match started, and we had Kamatani and Sato trading some pretty stiff strikes. And Sato sort of gains control, and he applies a rear naked choke to Kamatani. And I haven't seen too much of Kamatani when I've watched Big Japan, but immediately in this rear naked choke sequence, I was really impressed with him. Not only just because Sato makes a rear naked choke look compelling, even though he's not properly, cinching in the choke. Kamatani just did a really good job of just showing the struggle in his face, and immediately he just has that babyface charisma that I really enjoy. And I know that he actually got a push a few years ago. I think it was 2016 or 2017 when he won the Big Japan Strong Heavyweight title. And I heard people say that the reign didn't go well. But hey, I'm not bogged down by that knowledge because I'm not aware of it. So yeah, I'm excited to see more of this guy in the future. And yeah, he ended up escaping the rear naked choke, obviously. Imagine if the match just ended there. Sato's just they're just having a strike exchange. Sato strikes him a bit and then just chokes him out. But yeah, Kamatani comes back. They go for some more strikes. And then Kamatani gets to really show off the variety that he has, because as I said, he has that fantastic sort of babyface selling. I personally, for whatever carnal evolutionary reason, I just see this sort of selling from this person, and I just find myself caring for him. Not to get sappy about it, but he's someone where I just want to say, come on, Kamatani, you can do this. But then he shows the other side where he just lets out these incredibly stiff fucking moves and just smashes Sato. And yeah, then we see Hashimoto tag in, and so this is the other side of the Okami tag team, and I really like it because you have Kamatani. I was going to say Kawatami. You have Kamatani, and his stiff style is sort of more brutish. He sort of uses his pure strength, whereas Hashimoto, obviously coming from his famous father Shinya, he is more of the stiff style where it's just relating to pure strikes. So you're more likely to get the sharp strikes from Daichi Hashimoto, whereas with Kamatani, it's those more brutish bulldozing sort of moves. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. And it was great just watching them go at it, because I love when it feels like the two members of a tag team are different, and thus they both complement each other, sometimes people think it's smart to have a tag team where the two members are exactly the same. You have two luchadors, or, what else? Two technical wrestlers. And I honestly think I prefer the variety that comes from having people who are still in the sort of same direction, that is, putting on a stiff fight, but get there in different ways, as I've already over-explained with Hashimoto and Kamatani. Nakanoe, he wasn't, I'm not sure if he just wasn't featured too heavily in the match that was clipped, or if he just generally wasn't doing much in the match, up until the very end, that is, because he was basically dormant for me, but then at the very end, he just burst out some amazing strikes. Like, there was one moment where, I believe it was Hashimoto, Hashimoto came off the ropes and Nakanoe popped him up in the air and hit like a great, I believe it was either an elbow or an uppercut, and Hashimoto sold that fantastically with like as soon as it connected, his head went like right up, and then Nakanoe actually ended up getting the win with a massive lariat on Hashimoto. And I was surprised because I actually thought that, I'm not a big follower of Big Japan, but I thought that Hashimoto, I know he's obviously not, I know his father's cred isn't that big, but with that and just the fact that I thought Hashimoto had like a bit of a higher ranking in Big Japan, so I was surprised to see him take the fall, especially to Nakanoe, who I'd never really heard of. So I guess my ignorance is to blame here for me being surprised, but I ended up being pretty impressed by this match. It was like a 2 3/4, but honestly, as I said, if we saw the full length of this, I might have gone, like 3.5, maybe even more, just because I really like the exchanges I was seeing. In the post-match, Kamatani and Sato sort of continued jousting while Hashimoto was still on the mat. And backstage, Kamatani also confronted Sato while Sato was giving the backstage interview. So obviously this is hinting at something, or else, they wouldn't have bothered showing us this. I'm not sure how exactly Big Japan structures their matches. So, are we going to see this lead to like a singles match like within the next few weeks or even the month? Or is this just going to continue the tag team feud between Hashimoto and Kamatani and Sato and I guess whoever he chooses to tag with? Because I don't believe he's actually a full-time partner of Nakanoe, is he? That was sort of just a random booking decision to put him here. I'll just do some, on-air research. Now, just checking his tag teams on Cage Match, doesn't look like he's paired with Nakanoe, although that would be a sick team. Like, honestly, I saw from them today, it was a great team, because, again, I just realized Sato and Nakanoe all basically have the same sort of dynamic as Hashimoto and Kamatani, because Sato, I think of the more, sharp, stiff strike base, while Nakanoe, he seems like the more sort of monster style, sort of matching what Kamatani was. Not to say that they're necessarily equal, because I haven't seen enough of Hashimoto, Kamatani, and Nakanoe to really comment, but I thought all four were great anyways. And hey, if there's going to be a rematch on like a bigger show, or at least where more of a match can be shown between them, I'm all for it. Okay, next match. This was our first death match of the night. So this was Takayuki Ueki, or Ueki, I believe it's pronounced, and Toshiyuki Sakura versus Masashi Takeda and Yuko Miyamoto. And this type of death match was called a weapons-bringing match. So, basically, they bring their own weapons. They get to decide. And obviously that's like such a weird stipulation to think of outside of kayfabe, because it's like, okay, what if they just, bring like the biggest sort of weapons, I've actually seen in Big Japan before, they've brought like sort of guns before. Like, if that's already in the law of Big Japan as being allowed, because obviously in the kayfabe, someone brought a gun and they still, came to work the next week, then why wouldn't you in these weapon bringing matches just bring the guns? Even if you don't actually have to use them, you can just threaten someone and be like, hey, if you don't get on the ground and let me pin you for the 3 count, then I'm going to shoot you in the face. Anyways, no need for me to go into that, but that's just one of those things you think about. It's like, hey, if they can bring weapons, why don't they just bring guns? They've already done it before. Anyways, this was another clipped match. It was 9 minutes, clipped to 6 minutes, so not missing out on too much. It was a pretty decent match though. We started with some nice acrobatics from Miyamoto and Sakura. Again, Miyamoto was on the ZERO1 show from the day before, and he only really showed off at the very end of that match, if I believe what I think I remember saying. But here with Sakura, they both had some pretty good chemistry. There was a really sickening use of a knife by Takeda. I believe it was a knife. It was something that looked pretty sharp. And just for my personal history, this isn't to get any deeper or anything, but it's just I've had like a bad cut before in my life. That's not meant to come off as a circumcision joke, I just realized, and I'm not even trying to play this off as the whole thing being a joke. I'll just explain what happened, just so I can save myself from this awkwardness. A few years ago, I was cutting like some meat and had a big knife. I don't want to get too graphic. So if you're sensitive, then just listen out for the next like 10 seconds, okay? But I accidentally ended up cutting my finger and slicing my tendon. And so ever since that day, obviously my hand's okay now. It's all good. It's all good now. But ever since that day, whenever I use a knife or I see someone using a knife, I always just, bunch up and get really awkward. And that's what I felt watching Takeda use this knife. And he was using it like in a way where, when I see knives used in death matches, they're usually used in a very weak way. Like they basically just put the side of the blade against someone's head, and even though it's going to make me cringe, I still want to at least see the believability of using such a weapon in a wrestling match. Because hey, you don't need to use these weapons to have a good wrestling match, but if you're going to introduce them, then don't tease me. At least use them properly. And I just thought that Takeda was doing a good job with that here. There was a stiff board with razors on one half of one side that was introduced, and quite a few of the spots at this point in the match sort of revolved around that. There was one really weird spot which I didn't really understand, where Ueki, he attacked Takeda as Takeda was going off the ropes, and he attacked him with like an electric drill, but it looked like there was something like square or round on the end of the drill, like as if it was almost like there was a cup on the end of it or something. And so the crowd reacted to it with sort of shock, because they just see the drill, but I was focusing on whatever the hell was at the end of it, because it seemed to be covering up the drill end, so it didn't look like he was actually attacking him. Sakuda, as I said at the start of the match, he was doing some pretty good acrobatics with Miyamoto, keeping up with him. And there were two big spots where Sakuda had some big dives to execute, but he actually ended up almost botching both of them. They were both from outside the ring, jumping off the top rope into the ring, and he lost his footing on both of them, but he still managed to land safely. And impressively enough, he also managed to still make the moves themselves, look solid. But yeah, I was just, hey, Sakuda, if you're usually like this, then step it up. You got to take care of yourself, got to take care of your friends in the ring. We've got to take care of you, okay, boy? There was one very funny moment where Sakuda is going for a pin on what's his bloody name? He's going for a pin on Takeda, and Ueki is on top of Sakuda, holding him down, so it's like a double pin. And then Miyamoto, he gets a baseball bat, and just before the 3 count can be counted, he smashes the baseball bat into Ueki. And the kayfabe idea is that because Ueki had his hands on Sakuda, when Miyamoto swinged, I know it sounds stupid, but when Miyamoto swung the bat into Ueki, because Ueki's hands on Sakuda, it pushed Sakuda off of Takeda, thus breaking the pinfall. And I just want to go on a little quick rant about how weird it is, the in-game, I guess the in-world lore in pro res regarding pins, and like how they're applied and how they're broken up. Because it's like the Golden Lovers in New Japan, how they would do the joint pin, where like the joke is, haha, they're gay, so they're going to lie on top of each other while they pin another person. And obviously that's not exactly the same here, but Ueki and Ueki and Sakuda, they're doing a similar double pin. But it's like, wouldn't the referee in both of these instances be like, hey, this isn't a proper pin because you're the tag team partner who's not legal, they're interfering and trying to apply pressure? Like, how is that any different, like, in principle, from the legal wrestler putting his legs on the ropes to get elevation in kayfabe in order to get a stronger pin? Like, it just seems like cheating, And also, on the other side of that, how come it's merely that if there are two people in the ring, one person is going for the pin, or let's say person A is pinning person B, then person B's tag team partner runs in and just lightly brushes person A, like it doesn't even manage to get their own tag team partner's shoulders off the mat in that instance? How come that still counts as the pin being broken up? I've never understood that, like in all those great All Japan tags in the 90s, or even like the Dragon Gate great tag matches of the last like 10 years. Whenever someone's being pinned, their tag team partner rushes in and just slaps the person on top. But the person who's doing the pin, they still had their opponent underneath them. They still had their shoulders to the mat. They never got up for the 3 count. So again, that's just a little rant. It's just something that annoyed me. So yeah, what else is there? Anyways, there was a hot finishing stretch. Sakuda was working over Takeda, and he dumped him on the other side of that board with all the razors with a fisherman buster, and he still couldn't put him away. So he went to the top of the turnbuckle to probably slightly botched another move. But luckily Takeda got up, and he's got those sticks that actually look like pasta. I have no idea what they're meant to be, but I'm actually quite terrified of them because they just get stuck into someone's forehead, or the dome, the top of their dome, and they just stay in there even though they're taking like some pretty brutal falls. So yeah, Takeda put those in there, and then he hit Sakuda with a brainbuster, and that surprisingly didn't put Sakuda away, and that got a pretty big pop. And so then Takeda went for the reverse U crash for the win, which is basically a high angle reverse DDT. And I have to say, Takeda's power moves always look great. As I've said, I didn't see all of his matches from his reign or even like throughout 2018, but the few matches I did see, they were great. And honestly, God, my voice just cracked. Sorry, I've been talking for so long. Honestly, his power moves are so impressive. Like, he just knows the perfect way to get the timing on them so that he holds them up for the perfect amount of time and then brings them down. And there's no issue with, getting the proper impact. I don't know, he's just got it all. So yeah, I really hope to see more of Takeda. It's good to see he got the win here. So, he's been kept strong ever since his loss. I'm not, you'll hear my thoughts on the main event from Takahashi later, but I'm already a bit sad that I don't get to see more of Takeda's, main event death matches, but, looking forward to whatever he has next. So yeah, decent death match. The pure wrestling at the end was really what I enjoyed the most. The sort of standard deathmatch stuff in the first half, I like some of it. Some of it I was like, this is all right. But yeah, it all came together in the end for a pretty hot finish. So I gave this 3 stars. Okay, so our second deathmatch was Jaki Namazawa Ryuichi. Oh god, I must sound like a fucking idiot trying to recite these names. I'm sorry, guys. Just give me a second. I'll start over. So, Jaki Namazawa, Ryuichi Sikene, and Ryuji Ito versus Kankuro Hoshino, Minoru Fujita, and Yuichi Taniguchi. Okay, there you go. I got those last 4 names pretty well. So, this was a barbed wire board tag deathmatch, and sadly, once again, it was also clipped. And so we joined in progress just as Taniguchi was tricked to going into the table. And for the short amount of time we saw this match, the story was basically Taniguchi getting worked over by Namazawa and Ito. And I hadn't seen much of Taniguchi prior to this. I think I'd probably seen like 1 or 2 matches, but I thought he was a pretty fun, babyface. He had the the charisma going of, I'm getting so beaten up, won't someone just help me? And he eventually gets a few hope spots. He actually got one pretty cool spot where he went for the old school, or I guess whatever that spot is called. That what's his name? What's his name? The guy who did the prayer position, Hakushi. What's his name? Shinzaki. Yeah, he did that old school spot where grabs the arm, walks around the ropes, and that was cool / also sort of funny. But in the end, Ryuji Ito ended up getting the win with his signature beautiful frog splash, and this would make sense for the last match of the show, as I'll keep you in suspense until you find out, but you already probably know. So yeah, fine match, 2.5 stars. Next match, this was where the matches really started getting like quite good, like above the sort of average sort of good level to like the good level, if that's not a convoluted enough explanation for you. So we had Hideki Suzuki, Takuya Nomura, and Yoshihisa Uto versus Kazumi Kikuta, Ryuichi Kawakami, and Yuji Okabayashi. So my main takeaway from this match is Okabayashi is great, save for one issue, which I'll briefly touch on at the end. So the reason I love Okabayashi is because he is always energetic and he comes with a beastly offense. For me, I actually prefer him over Sekimoto just because when he's getting all hyped up, I feel it comes off more natural and it's almost more... how can I say? It's more infectious coming from him than Sekimoto. I guess it's just because Sekimoto's vocalizations sort of annoy me, whereas Sekimoto, as I said earlier for the ZERO1 review, his voice sort of sounds more whiny, whereas with Okabayashi, he really does come off as, like alpha male, sort of like man-beast, Maybe I'm immediately regretting describing him as a man beast, but you know what I mean. He comes off as a total stud. So match started off with our favorite thing here at the Pure Grade Pro Wrest. It started off with a 50-50 series of exchanges between him and Hideki Suzuki. And again, Hideki Suzuki, sorry, I already know one Suzuki. You're going to have to be Hideki. Doesn't mean you're not important. Just means I just don't want to be confused. After that, we didn't get anything really from the Okabayashi and Hideki exchanges. Then we got Kikuta and Nomura, and we saw a bit more interesting stuff from them. They had some strikes and grappling, and it looked like we were just going through the pairings of all the members, because then we got Kawakami and Uto, and they faced off, but almost immediately after they both tagged in, this ended up leading to an all-out brawl with every corner of the arena being covered in, some pairing of people going at each other. It was notable because we had Okabayashi and Nomura up in the high stands doing a bunch of stiff strike exchanges, and Fuminori Abe, he even jumped in to go after Okabayashi, and he was throwing some forearms at him, but Okabayashi eventually brushed him off. Another like little sub story throughout this match was Kikuta. He was constantly trying to tee off on Hideki. He didn't look very impressive, visually or physically, but when I saw him, when the camera at least focused on him going off against Hideki, he was throwing some pretty well worked strikes and everything, and I was really excited to see like an exchange between them. And it was also funny because Hideki would always sort of brush him off, and like either just like no sell his strikes to some extent, or just fire back with his own that would sort of put Kikuta in his place. And at one point he even just like low blowed him, just because he was like, you know what, okay, you're putting in a good fight, I can't be bothered with this shit, what's the easiest option here to make this annoyance end? Boom, right in the gonads, damn, you are gone, son. So back in the ring, we had Okabayashi. He tags in again, and once again, he's facing off with Hideki, but this time Hideki actually manages to gain control and starts working over Okabayashi's left arm. And then Nomura tags in, and he gives an even bigger and better working over of Okabayashi's arm. He goes for a seated arm bar and some arm breakers, as well as just generally delivering some stiff kicks. There was nice selling from Okabayashi this entire time. Obviously, I already commented on his great energy, and obviously that relates here when he's selling very energetically. He doesn't go into melodrama. He's just making it, a very energetic, emotive performance. Eventually, Okabayashi, the story becomes that, he's able to power through, even though he's, having a limb worked over, he's strong enough to fight over that, and he ends up going and putting on a fight 1 versus 3 against all the opposing team members, and he actually got a really cool sequence where he just hit each member with consecutive suplexes. So yeah, he's just showing fantastic fire, and it's very endearing seeing someone, even though it sounds stupid, because at the end of the day, all Okabayashi is really doing is just, scrunching his face up and holding his arms out and screaming, but there's just something like, primal about that, where it's just like, damn, I really appreciate the passion this guy is showing, and the care he's showing to his craft to just do his best to, fight on here. And yeah, he ends up putting a big camel clutch on Nomura and ends up getting the win. And I'll get the negative out of the way first, and then I'll go on to the big praise I have. So the negative I had, which I hinted at earlier, was related to the selling of Okabayashi, because as I mentioned, he has his left arm worked over by Hideki as well as Nomura, and he's selling well, like there's real-time selling where, you're selling like the immediate reactions of the move, and that was good. That was very good. But then there was the, short-term selling where I'm talking about like, a few minutes later, like after the sequence where his arm was supposedly, destroyed. And in that camel clutch, as annoying as it may sound, I really wanted to see him sell their arm a bit more, because the camel clutch, you have to use both hands, both arms. So it makes sense that he would have to struggle a bit after Nomura and Hideki had been, kicking his arm in and, wrenching it all over the place. It would have been nice if he showed like a bit more struggle in locking that in. I think that would have just added to the match a bit more. But he still did, sell the effects of it in the post-match. And, hey, this was an upper mid-card match on a random Korakuen house show. So can I really be that critical? And the answer is I can, but I can be critical in a good way, because the one thing I did love about this finish relating to Okabayashi was it was a simple, like old school submission hold, a camel clutch. I love this. Like I've always thought, like, in my head, if I was ever a wrestler, what would my style be? My style would sort of be old school submission style. And like I was thinking, like the camel clutch, visually, it's a very cool submission hold. The way you just like put the person's arms over the over your knees and just like pull on the face. It's just a very visually cool move. And to see Okabayashi, like this absolute massive monster of a dude, applying it to a small guy like Takuya Nomura, it's just very cool to see. It's like, damn, this looks like a very dominant dude, and that's sort of related to the issue I have with people like Zack Sabre Jr., who are basically like submission spot monkeys, where they go for the like most extreme sort of submissions possible. Like, he has his what is it, orienting with napalm death, and there's that other one, that ridiculous one, that the ridiculous one he did at I think it was Wrestle Kingdom. I can't remember where he did it recently, and like he has to apply like 5 holds at once, and even though that's technically impressive, from like a genuine standpoint, it always comes off as fake to me. So it's cool to see someone like Okabayashi just go for like old school, just like, you know, master the fundamentals. That's such a cool idea. So yeah, anyways, in the post-match, Hideki's team, I didn't mention this because it wasn't big, but they'd sort of been using chairs all throughout the match, you know, like it wasn't like big interference spots, but when they had them on the outside, they'd, you know, hit him with a chair. And Abdullah Kobayashi, who I guess is sort of the manager for Hideki's team or whatever, he was like helping them out. And so yeah, in the post-match, Hideki, they use the chairs again, and Okabayashi gets annoyed at this, and he actually goes after Abdullah Kobayashi, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, good match, 3.25 stars. On Cage Match, it's got a 6.6 rating. So if you actually want to look at the real average, because Cage Match sort of does like for matches that don't have many ratings, they sort of give like a weighted result. So that's probably like, you know, an average 7 out of 10 rating. So that's about what I've got, you know. It was a good match. It was actually very close to being my match of the night. But that match of the night ended up being Sekimoto versus Hama, the next match. So it seems that I am once again the contrarian, where with the ZERO1 show, everyone thought that Sekimoto had the match of the night, and I actually thought that went to Yuji Hino and Otani. Well, here, everyone thought that the main event between Takahashi and Tsukamoto was the main event, whereas I actually gave this one to Sekimoto this time around. So Sekimoto is going off against Hama. He's defending the BJW Strong World Heavyweight title, and I really like the story because it's Hulk versus Monster, and it was once again structured just like Sekimoto's match against Sato, where he has to work underneath. But this time, obviously, it's a very different type of working underneath, because instead of being up against a a full-on shooter in Sato, he's up against just a total monster. So the match sort of varied between being like funny and also just like genuinely entertaining, because Hama he's quite a character, isn't he? There's no one really like him, at least that I can think of in modern wrestling, who's, you know, this larger wrestler but also just has like a great atmosphere about them. So the match started, and it was funny because, you know, as usual, we start with the 50-50 grappling, but it's more like 90-10 grappling, because Hama, he doesn't even have to do it. Like, he doesn't actually do anything for the first, like, 5 minutes. It's all Sekimoto doing his best to actually move Hama in the first place. And Hama just stands still, sort of like, you know, grunts and smirks, and that's really it. And Sekimoto just wears himself out, just trying to, prove his strength. And he eventually finds out, shit, I'm actually going to have to do a bit more work before I can, get him going. So yeah, Sekimoto started hitting like some lariats at one point, and even then Hama's not really budging. Hama ends up going through like the sort of signature quote-unquote fat monster spots. I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way, but hey, look, it's the elephant in the room, and again, that's not meant as a pun, but like, it's the elephant in the room. The guy is very fat. He is overweight. I am genuinely worried about his health. As long as if he can wrestle this way while not putting his health in impact, then I'm all for it. But yeah, anyways, he goes about the typical sort of fat guy spots, the rope stand, the rolling sort of senton move, also like the glute smash in the corner, plus the stink face, I believe it was called by Rikishi, at least in the here in the West. And Hama doesn't come across as just any other sort of like fat guy, and I think that's just because you can tell there's more to him than just a fat guy who's been paid to get in the ring and emphasize his weight, because he has like as I said, he has a great atmosphere about him, because he's constantly like smirking and sort of like arrogant, and he really does take it as sort of like, you can tell from his character, he takes it as sort of a privilege to have all this weight and be able to use it against people. It's almost like, and this is just me reading into this being real pretentious, but it comes off as if he's aware that everyone's judging him because, hey, he's a pretty, he's a thick boy, some would say a bit too thick of a boy, but, he's able to prove to people, hey, yeah, you may notice me for this, but, I've got like all this going for me. Look how I can easily, take out this, strong heavyweight champ with my weight. It's just, he comes off as someone who's, comfortable in his own skin. He needs to be in a commercial for, God, I guess I don't know any skin-related commercials, but you get my point. So yeah, he doesn't come across as just any other sort of fat guy. He really comes across as having that sort of charisma where it's like, yeah, I'm a fat guy, what of it? I'm gonna fuck you up, bitch. That's what it comes across to me as. You understand? I always love when I do my impressions of the wrestlers when I can't properly explain myself. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just take on their persona for a few seconds and then just outright state what I think they're thinking. Anyways, Sekimoto, look, it's unsurprising, he eventually gains control. Hits a few lariats. He does like a judo sort of toss, and then he actually locks in a Boston Crab. And Hama, look, he may be able to be taken down by a few lariats, a judo toss, and a Boston Crab, but look, he's still got all that weight behind him. And so, look, Sekimoto is still struggling quite a bit, you know? It's funny because Sekimoto picks him up at one point to go, I'm not exactly sure what he's going for, but he picks him up in the scoop slam position, and we get the trademark, spot with a fat guy. Again, I hate feeling bad just calling him a fat guy, but look, I'm just using common parlance. I don't mean, no harm's meant by it, the common spot where Sekimoto picks him up, but he just crumbles under Hama's weight, and Hama ends up just, getting an artificial crossbody splash from it. It's funny because, God, I'm sorry I keep using "it's funny" as a lead into all my examples. Look, only my third episode, I'll get better, but I'll say it was cool instead of it was fun. It was cool seeing how even Hama's pins are built up as being like actual like dangerous moves, because you got to think you've got this massive guy lying on top of someone. Not only can his all of his fat folds actually suffocate someone, but also just the pure weight on Sekimoto's chest, it actually proves in like a few near fall spots to actually be an issue, because Sekimoto really has to use all of his strength to even get his shoulders up off the mat. And those were some genuinely like compelling spots where Hama's just lying on top of Sekimoto going for the pin, and the entire crowd is actually, like they can physically see, like, even if this has worked, how the heck is Sekimoto going to be able to communicate with Hama in order to physically get his shoulder up off the mat in time. So yeah, it's great. Even those like little moments, those little details that you wouldn't even think of in paper, when you see them acted out, they actually make for, pretty compelling moments. Hama's getting sort of annoyed, and also he's just genuinely growing tired because he can't put Sekimoto away. And the crowd's also rallying around Sekimoto at this moment. So Hama's like, okay, I need to put this guy away. He goes to the second top rope. Well, second top rope is sort of redundant, isn't it? The penultimate rope. He goes to the penultimate rope, and he's going to hit some sort of like Vader-like splash. I don't know what exactly his moves are. I can't imagine he'd go to the top rope, right? Maybe he's done that once in his career, but surely a guy of his weight would never go to the top rope. But anyways, he gets caught by a power bomb, and from there, this is pretty much Sekimoto's match. He hits like a series of big lariats and they weren't having too much of an effect at the start and middle of the match, but at this point, Hama is so tired and just worn out from the beating that Sekimoto still managed to incrementally deliver out to him, dish out to him, that one big lariat finally puts Hama away. So yeah, good match. Hama's gimmick is a bit stale after a while, but it still allows for a variety of spots. And that sounds sort of contradictory. By what I mean is, like, I'm still going to see a bunch of spots that emphasize his weight, and I can appreciate how they're constantly changing. But at the end of the day, they still were sort of, oh, he's fat, he's big, he's a big boy, it's going to be difficult for Sekimoto to move him. So a bit derivative at the end. Is that the right word? Derivative? I'm always asking myself if I'm using the right words. Hey, look, guys, I'm still nervous. Only my third episode. Give me a break. But yeah, it was a bit uncreative, I guess, in the structure, but the spots themselves were still fun. And I actually felt really bad for Hama at the end, because you could tell, like, not only had he, was he disappointed that he'd lost, but he was also just physically, tired. It's like, damn, he expended so much energy, and he doesn't walk away with the title for all that effort. It's a shame. And in the post-match, we had a sort of like warriors respect and a handshake shown between them. And I wasn't sure, because at the start they had a stare down and it was like, oh shit, do they have unfinished business? Is there going to be a rematch? But, handshake and walk away, and, that's cool. So, yeah, this was my match of the night, personally. It had a fun dynamic. It was sort of like the Hino versus Otani match from the ZERO1 show, as I, constantly keep referring to. Just because it had a fun dynamic where both wrestlers are so different, it just ends up with a very unique match from that style. Now we come to the main event, and finally I only have one match to talk about before I can finish this massive 2-hour recording, which has actually taken me, when accounting for all the editing, like 4 hours in total to do. God, I'm so tired, my voice is quite raw. Anyways, this brings us to the main event, the Big Japan Pro Wrestling Deathmatch Heavyweight Champion, Masaya Takahashi versus Takumi Tsukamoto. I keep getting confused because Masashi Takeda is similar in name to Masaya Takahashi, so I keep getting them confused, but I'm going to do my best to remember them. So this was a fluorescent light tubes, fluorescent items, and alpha deathmatch. And right off the back, before I directly jump into the review, that sort of confuses me because I definitely saw fluorescent light tubes and I saw stones and I saw tacks, but I don't remember any fluorescent items. Like, what was that meant to refer to? Was there something clipped out? And I'm still confused by this. What is alpha? Like, I feel like I've seen alpha as like an item or like a stipulation in death matches before, at least in Big Japan. What the heck is alpha? And I've tried looking it up online, and I've no idea what it's meant to be referring to. Anyways, I'll just say outright, death matches are very hit and miss for me. For a death match to be something I consider good, it usually has to be something pretty extreme. Like, there's the Miyamoto versus Sasaki, the scaffold death match from 2007. That's one of my favorite death matches. I love that. That was the first match that really convinced me, like, oh, maybe there can be still that sort of artistic sporting style to death matches that I appreciate in normal wrestling. And of course, as I've already mentioned, Kodaka versus Takeda from last year, which is one like a 4 3/4 star match, like one of my top like I'd say at least 30 matches of all time. I love that match. It was insane. So yeah, death matches have to go pretty extreme to impress me. And even though I like some of Big Japan's death matches, there are times where they just come across as sort of underwhelming. And that was sadly one of these. So let me refer to my notes. I feel bad because I'm just going to be, because if people are looking directly for the Big Japan review, then they're mostly looking for the review for this match, because this was the match that's got the best ratings. You know, if you check Cage Match, it's got the 8.21 rating, which is the highest rating of all the matches. But yeah, look, guys, don't hate me. Like, I enjoyed it. It was an alright match, but it just wasn't really my style. Like, I saw people talking about this as match of the year contender, and I'm still sitting over here like, damn, Wrestle Kingdom though. And yeah, again, I'm sorry guys, I keep referring to New Japan. Look, I should be focusing on my own promotions. Look, I'm obviously an insecure New Japan fan who feels I have to keep bringing New Japan back into the fold. It's so funny because I have so many criticisms of New Japan, but yeah, you know what? They're still my baby. But anyways, Big Japan. God, this is going to be driving people away. It's a Big Japan review. I'm talking about New Japan. I got to stop right now. Let's go back to my notes. So yeah, it's always funny when you have like a death match in Big Japan, because they don't go like, obviously it's a weird scenario, because instead of 2 guys in the ring, it's 2 guys in the ring and like 300 light tubes. So it's always funny. And again, but this time it genuinely is funny. I hate to keep using that as a crutch phrase, but again, it was genuinely funny. All these weapons in the ring, and both guys lock up at the start and go for 50-50 grapples. And I understand the idea behind that in kayfabe, because it's like there are so many dangerous weapons and both guys know that the other could use them at any time, so they're unwilling to, you know, overcommit to any move. They've got to be slow and pace themselves. But you know, eventually we get past this, you know, the sort of essentially time-wasting grappling, and, you know, the fans get what they want, where, you know, light tubes are breaking, you know, all sides back and forth, and you know, it's just a general sort of brawling style match at this point, just with light tubes thrown in. And I couldn't think of any particular spots that really caught my interest. One that caught my notice, caught my attention, one that I noticed, was the use of the Mega Hammer. And I've never been able to take the Mega Hammer seriously. It just reminds me of the suitcase from Dragon Gate, or whatever that is, that they like knock people on the head with from the apron, you know, like their tag team partners, or their you know, third men, you know, whatever the hell you call them. It just looks so weak. And the Mega Hammer, like, you know, it makes me think of like an incredibly wimpy version of Guts from Berserk, you know, with the oversized sword, except this doesn't look dangerous at all. It just looks like a massive plastic hammer. I don't know. It just looks really cheesy. So yeah, after that, there's even more light tube breakages, and it's still not really doing it for me. There was an interesting moment where Takahashi brought out some stones, and when they first showed it on camera, I genuinely thought it was like some sort of like food, because the stones were like some sort of like worms or some sort of like curry or something, because the stones were all wet. And so I was thinking, oh god, is it something disgusting? Is he going to make him eat it? But yeah, they were stones. And I was really confused, because the way he poured whatever it is, like the stones out, I was like, oh, well, it's going to be tacks, but then it's stones. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, if I landed on stones, it's probably going to hurt. But stones don't have that sort of allure to them where it's like, oh, that's something you don't see every day. That's something dangerous. Like tacks, immediately, what do you think? Sharp. You know, obviously there's immediate danger associated with them. But with stones, I'm thinking, oh, you mean the things that I see every day I walk outside onto my driveway, or, you know, the things I see on the side of the road? Like, yeah, I guess they hurt, but, you know, they're not like anything compared to tacks, which is why I was confused. I was like, where are the tacks? Are we not going to have tacks in this match? Luckily, we did have tacks later on, but yeah, we had stones for a bit, and there are a few spots on the stones. I wasn't super into them. There was a table spot, and I feel like I'm being negative about everything. I did actually enjoy this match, but I'm just going through the negatives. But the table spot was sort of weak. It was Takahashi that set it up, and Sekimoto ended up pushing Takahashi through it, but the spot just looked weak. Like he went for like a sort of side suplex on Takahashi, but the table broke so easily, and just the way that they both landed on it, it looked so soft. Like it just looked like they're like jumping onto a bed almost. It was like, oh, that looked sort of comfy, like it was a very graceful fall. And again, I don't need these wrestlers to hurt themselves in order to entertain me, and I do care about their health, but if they are going to introduce these weapons into a match, then hey, that's on them. They've introduced, what is it, Chekhov's gun or whatever. You introduce an item, it has to be used. But the second rule to that I apply is it has to be used properly. Like you can't just like put in a table and then just have the resulting spot from it be weak. Like you have to go all out, because there are plenty of table breaks that I've seen over the last few years. Usually, I'm definitely not talking about in WWE, because those also look incredibly weak, but where they just genuinely look painful, and it's like, damn, that's especially in a death match. That's when you want the table spots to look brutal, but it just didn't look that good. Back in the ring, there was one good spot with the stones. I remember this. I'm looking at my notes and I remember this. There was a power bomb on the stones, and that was the one spot relating to the stones that looked good. All the other like power moves that ended up going onto the stones, they looked sort of weak. But that power bomb, I can't remember who did it to who, but or is it whom? Anyways, I can't remember who did it to whom, but it looked quite good. And then we finally got the text, and so there was a board that the stones were poured onto, and so the tacks were poured on like the other half of this board, and as the match progressed, both the tacks and the stones sort of like mixed together, so you couldn't really tell if someone was falling more on tacks or more on stones. And I was excited because I was like, okay, finally some like extreme violence. I feel weird saying that, sort of icky, like I'm an edgy 12-year-old, but finally something extreme. Like I'm gonna see some really sharp instruments. I'm going to see some really sharp objects going into someone's skin. This is going to give me that cringe factor that I enjoy, that I want to, so I can feel shocked, which is what I want when watching a deathmatch. But again, a lot of the spots just didn't seem to fully connect. Like the guys sort of both seemed to be really covering themselves up when they were landing on the tacks. And hey, I don't blame you. I wouldn't fucking want to land on some tacks. But again, if you're going to introduce these objects, these props into a match, into your theatrical performance, I feel like you have to use them properly. You can't just just tease me on them and, pussy out of it. But yeah, so I can at least appreciate that they did a variety of spots. Like, because there's one sequence where they're both just going back and forth over a short period of time, just putting each other through the same tack and stone table. And even though the moves themselves didn't look too damaging on the actual tacks and stones, I still appreciated the idea of like, okay, yeah, they're both going to put each other through the exact same painful mixture out on the board. I appreciated that. So eventually Sekimoto just gets worn down, and it's sort of cool because he's still trying to show his fighting spirit. He's on the ground, and he reaches for a light tube, and instead of trying to use it defensively or offensively, he just breaks it on his head, trying to still show the crowd that he's still into it. But Takahashi, he's like, nah, mate, you're fucking going down. So Takahashi breaks some light tubes, and then he adds that to the mixture of tacks and stones on the board, and then he hits a jackhammer for the win, putting Sekimoto through the mixture of broken light tubes, well, light tubes at that point, but then broken light tubes, tacks, and stones. And obviously it's a bit of a silly idea, like, the more props, I guess, you put someone through, the more damage it's going to do. Like, it makes sense from like a, not to be mean, but like a kindergarten sort of understanding, but it's like, surely at the end of the day that jackhammer is going to do just as much damage on the tacks alone as it will on the tacks and stones and the tacks, stones, and light tubes. Anyways, another random issue. I did actually enjoy this. Like the first half was pretty slow, but even though the light tube usage wasn't super interesting, I still appreciate, seeing all that, all the blood and seeing how the guys wield them as weapons. I find that pretty cool. And then the spots in the second half, even if they weren't always executed super well, I appreciated the intent behind them. I also really enjoyed how we saw more wrestling at the very end of the match, because for me, I've always been someone who, I prefer my like out there sort of avant-garde stipulations for matches, sort of, ladder match, bull rope match, hardcore match, whatever. I've always appreciated those matches more as a wrestling match with hardcore elements, or a wrestling match with a ladder, as opposed to a hardcore match or a ladder match, just because I feel like what I appreciate most about wrestling is still the wrestling. It's the faux grappling and going for the pins. It's not necessarily someone just hitting someone hard over the head with a blunt object. That's not something I'm really into, and that's why I really loved Kodaka versus Takeda from last year, because it felt like a genuine big style wrestling match with massive power moves and strikes, but it just so happened to have light tubes and all that sort thrown in, and that was just the added spice. I think of like the main dish should be the wrestling, and all the light tubes and such, all that deathmatch hardcore element, that should be the spice. That's my take on this. That's how I think this should be. But yeah, decent match in the end. And in the post-match, we had Ryuji Ito, hot off of his win earlier in the night. He came to challenge Takahashi. And apparently that match was planned for 14th January, which is now past for us. And apparently it's going to be airing like a week from now or so on Samurai TV. So that's probably going to be a big show. So I'll probably watch that and possibly review it if it's a big show. I might skip it just because there's so much stuff I have to review, or at least that I want to review, because I want to do, Dragon Gate and, Noah and All Japan. Then I got to do previews for New Japan. So I'll see what happens, Big Japan isn't one of my favorite promotions, so I might just, leave them for a while until they have like another big show. But again, I'll just have to check out the card for this, 114 show. Apparently, the stipulation was that it was going to be a tag match, and get this, apparently, I read somewhere that Ito and Takahashi were going for the record for most like tags in a match. So, and I saw one screenshot. Luckily, it didn't give away the result, but I saw a screenshot of either of them. I couldn't tell who, either Ito or Takahashi, just lying in a pool of tags. And yeah, I definitely think that that's a match that's going to be more up my alley. So yeah, I'm excited for that. Final thoughts. This was a solid show. I wasn't into it as much as I've seen other people. Like on Cage Match from the let's check out the ratings it got. If I remember correctly, as I stall for time. Yeah. Like it's already got like 2 ratings, like 9 out of 10 ratings. And if we look at the big matches they got, there were 3 matches that were added to Match Guide from this. So obviously, at least the Cage Match owners and some of the Cage Match users thought that this was like a great show. And I sadly have to say I thought it was an all right show. It was like a 6 out of 10. I way more enjoyed the ZERO1 show. I thought they had a higher amount of like genuinely good matches, as opposed to this Big Japan show, which I thought had mostly just like all right matches. So again, I'll just run through all the matches and just quick like final opinions and then ratings. The opening 8-man tag match, which was basically a DDT match, no rating. It was heavily clipped, mostly a comedy fest. I had no idea what was going on. Then the 6-man tag, that was fine, but, very short. Nothing to complain about, nothing too bad, but nothing interesting, so 2 stars. Hashimoto and Kamatani versus Sato and Nakanoe. Very good match for its time. If we saw more, it probably would have gotten a higher rating, but 2 3/4 stars. Ueki and Sakura versus Takeda and Miyamoto. Decent match. Another one I wish would have gone longer, or that I could have at least seen more of. I liked what I saw from Miyamoto and Takeda, though. That's a pretty cool team. So I gave that 3 stars. Then we have the barbed wire board tag death match. I'm not going to bother listing all the names. This is all right, but very short. Liked what I saw from Taniguchi, and Ito looked good. He always has an impressive frog splash. So yeah, 2.5 stars. Then we had the final 6-man tag with Hideki Suzuki, Takuya Nomura, Yoshihito Uto, Kazumi Kikuta, Ryuichi Kawakami, and Yuji Okabayashi. Oh, why has there got to be so many people in the bloody match? I've got to hurt my voice reading out all those names. But yeah, this was a good match. I saw some people really high on this. I gave it 3 1/4, which is like, that's a decent match, especially because it was relatively short. I really liked what I saw from Okabayashi. Obviously, I had like just a tiny bit of an issue with his selling, but other than that, he was fantastic. Then we had my match of the night, Sekimoto versus Hama. A very, very fun dynamic. Sekimoto is great. Hama is very unique. His style can sort of wear me down, being like, okay, I get it, he's fat, he wrestles as a fat wrestler, come on, get on with it. But I did find quite a few of the spots pretty funny, and he's just a fun character. So yeah, fun dynamic. Gave this also 3.25 stars. It was like only just better than the previous the 6-man tag from before, but I enjoyed both of them quite a bit. Then the tag match, Takahashi versus Sekimoto, not really my thing, but still had a few deathmatch elements that I enjoyed, and I really enjoyed the pure wrestling, the pure grade wrestling that we saw at the end, meshed in with all the common deathmatch spots. So I enjoyed that. Ended up being 3 stars. So yeah, final thoughts. Quite a few pretty decent matches. Nothing I would really go out of my way to watch again. Maybe Sekimoto versus Hama, just because it's such a unique sort of matchup. You know, got this small sort of monster in Sekimoto versus this Hulk. No, wait, I got that around the wrong way. You've got this little Hulk in Sekimoto versus the monster of Hama. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah, if you're like a usual Big Japan fan, you're probably way more into this than me. Like, I've already seen people calling the main eventer, I think, a match of the year contender, and also frothing over the other 2 matches, the Sekimoto Hama match and the 6-man tag. So hey, look, if that's your style, then that's your style. I'm sure there are going to be Big Japan shows that impress me way more and have matches that are way more my style. So just because this wasn't a show I was super keen on, don't hate me. Please still subscribe and donate to my Patreon. I don't have a Patreon, but that's what people always do anyways at the end of these podcasts. Anyways, God, it is now 1:30 a.m. Hard to believe that I've been here since like 8 p.m. I haven't been here the entire time, but I've been, writing down my notes and, recording and editing this as I've been going. And now I'm going to have to edit it a little bit more as I listen back to it and then post it the next day. So yeah, that's going to be fun. But yeah, thanks if you made it through thus far. This is the 3rd episode of Pure Grade Progress. I know that my next episode is probably going to be reviewing the Dragon Gate Rookie Tournament. I've already watched the first 2 shows, and there's actually one show tonight that I missed out on because I've been recording this. Okay, that's how dedicated I am to this show. Okay, folks, and I also know there's one more show where I think there are the Rookie Tournament finals, and that's going to be between. Listen out if you don't want spoilers, but it's going to be between, drumroll, it's going to be between Skywalker and Ishida. Yeah, I had to keep stalling for time there because I couldn't remember, but yeah, Skywalker and Ishida, and I believe that's the 26th. So I'm thinking around the 26th, after I've watched that show, is when I'll drop my entire review of all the Dragon Gate, Open the New Year Gate / Rookie Tournament shows. There's no point only reviewing like 3 of them, then waiting a week to review the 4th one. So I'll just drop them all in one go. Then I'm going to do a preview for New Japan's New Beginning series. I know there's a Wrestle 1 show where, again, spoilers, avoid the next 10-15 seconds if you don't want spoilers, where Ashino lost the Wrestle 1 title to T-Hawk. So I really want to review that show, just because, first big show of 2019 for Wrestle 1 that's going to air. Obviously, there's going to be that Big Japan show with Ito versus Takahashi. I don't know if it's going to have like a big enough card, like, big enough matches on the rest of the card for me to justify doing a full review. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So exciting times ahead. I'm really enjoying the show. My voice keeps getting worn out for talking for so long. This was another 2-hour review. I think as there's fewer shows to review, fewer shows coming out from Japan, I'm going to be able to just keep shows down to like 1 hour, because for normal shows that are like 2 to 3 hours, I seem to be able to keep my reviews down to 1 hour. So yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm going to go edit and publish this shit and then get it out. Thanks for tuning in again. Bye. Peace. Yo, thanks so much for listening, guys. You know what? For real though, I'm going to catch you later. Hey guys, it's time to go. You know what? That's it. I'm leaving. Hey guys, guess what? It's over. Goodbye. Hey guys, for the last time, get out.